Hey guys, welcome to Pocket Saga. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Ash went to Crown Tundra with Chloe and Go, Part 1. This story is the return of the Regi Master by author Pika Blue 182. Before starting, if you are interested in Pokemon fanfictions, you can consider subscribing this channel and like this video, that will help a lot. Now let's dive in. Calm down Piplups. Your food will be ready soon, just hold on a sec, exclaimed an exasperated Professor Cerise. He, alongside Ren and Krissa, were currently trying to get all the Piplups that had just hatched under control, though with very little success considering the sheer quantity of them currently roaming around the research facility. Only a few moments after he had managed to catch one of the runaway Piplups that was playing with the projector, Ren came out of the kitchen with a tray full of Pokemon food. "Alright, here's lunch you guys." Ren was then immediately tackled to the ground by at least 10 other Piplups, all of whom started to immediately devour the food that he had just brought. "I am okay, I think," he said faintly whilst immobile on the ground. "Why did we have to keep them here in the first place? Couldn't we have just put them in a daycare or something?" asked an exhausted Krissa. "That was the plan, but since we can't even manage to get them to stop running around the whole place, how are we supposed to keep them all still to bring them to a daycare in the first place?" replied the professor, earning a sigh from his assistants. The front door then suddenly opened up and they were greeted with the sight of 3 familiar faces. "We're back. What happened here?" asked Ash, confused as to why the research facility was seemingly infested with Piplups. "We had a bunch of eggs hatch at the same time and they all turned out to be Piplups, though we can't seem to get a hold of them. They've only just calmed down because we gave them food," answered Ren whilst slowly picking himself up from the ground as he watched Pikachu, Eevee and Grookey try to sneakily get some food from the tray, but quickly decided against it when the army of Piplups started giving them death stares. "Seems like you guys had fun," said Go sarcastically. "Well, I guess I can't be angry anymore at you canceling our family vacation. It seems like you're suffering enough as it is," added Chloe, which Professor Cerise replied to with a sigh. Anyways, I'm glad you're all back safe from Sinnoh. Did you find what was the issue with all the nightmares?" "Sure did," replied Ash with a grin. "Turns out it was Darkrai after all, and he was just looking out for Cresselia, who was being hunted by Team Rocket." "You encountered a Cresselia too? Just how many legendary Pokemon can you guys meet?" Professor Cerise then suddenly remembered he had to show something to the boys. "Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Ash, go, take a look at this." He quickly sat down at his computer and pulled up a few pictures that looked like abandoned ruins onto the projector. "What is that?" asked a curious Go. "It's an ancient temple found deep within the Crown Tundra, an area in the southern part of Galar. We've been getting multiple reports of mysterious readings coming from inside the ruins. I know you guys just came back from Sinnoh, but do you mind checking it out? Seems like a good excuse to explore the surroundings for some new Pokemon." "Of course. We're always ready for the next adventure, right Go?" "You bet. Mind if I come along?" Chloe suddenly asked. "I've been wanting to see the Crown Tundra, and I've never really gotten the chance to explore many snowy areas, especially living here in Vermilion." It was safe to say that Go and Ash were pretty surprised at the fact that Chloe would want to go on a research mission with them. She always seemed hesitant when it came to joining them on their trips. Go and Ash looked at each other and smiled, and Go replied, "Sure, the more the merrier." "Great. Well, have fun out there you guys, and don't forget to take pictures of what you find along the way," said the professor. "We will. See you," responded the trainers simultaneously. And with that, the trio, now consisting of Ash, Go and Chloe, alongside their partner Pokemon, were once again on their way to the region of Galar. The professor and his assistants waved them happily goodbye, until they were interrupted by the sounds of growling Piplups, who looked at them angrily, not so subtly pointing out the fact there was no longer any on the tray Ren had brought them. "Oh boy, here we go again," simply said Krissa. "Wow, Hammerlock sure is beautiful, right Pikachu?" "Pi Pika." The streets of Hammerlock were as per usual pretty busy and lively, even though it was already pretty late, as the sun could be seen slowly setting in the horizon and a few stars could also be seen appearing in the sky. People were still happily walking around, visiting the various attractions that the city was known for, and Pokemon and trainers were battling excitedly against each other at every turn, though this was to be expected by one of the Galar region's biggest cities. I mean, if you're comparing it to the last time we went here where, It was quite literally being destroyed by a rampaging Dynamax Pokemon. Then yes Ash, it is very beautiful, replied sassily Go to Ash's remarks. Alright you two, started Chloe, who currently had their only map in hand. According to this, the station that can take us to the Crown Tundra is just east from here, so if we don't distract it we should be there in a couple of min. Look Pikachu. A battle cafe. In typical Ash and Pikachu fashion, and without any sort of warning, Ash and Pikachu started to sprint in the complete opposite direction to where they were supposed to. Why am I not surprised? Sighed Chloe as she alongside Go went after Ash. As they ran through the streets of Hammerlock, Ash and Pikachu started to get weird looks from the locals of the city, all wondering why a boy with his Pikachu were so happily and carelessly running around the city, though that didn't seem to bother nor slow them down at all. After running for a while, the duo eventually made their way to the Battle Cafe, where they immediately busted open the front door and exclaimed, "I'm Ash Ketchum from Pallet Town and I want to have a battle." Everybody currently in the Battle Cafe simply looked up in silence at the stranger, who seemingly was just itching for a battle, which created an awkward tension between everybody in the building. Chloe and Go soon caught up to Ash, and when they realized how big of a scene he was making, they simply sighed once again, and then the two Vermilion City trainers grabbed one of his arms each and started to slowly drag him and Pikachu currently sitting on top of his head out of the Battle Cafe. "Did you already forget why we went here in the first place? You know, the temple in the Crown Tundra we were supposed to investigate," started off Chloe. "But I haven't had a Coronation Series battle since my battle with Iris," tried to desperately explain and convince Ash. "Speaking of which, she was probably right about you being a little kid after all," muttered Go. Hey, come on, not you two Go. You can have your battle later, right now, we got stuff to research and more important places to be," Chloe said, getting more and more irritated with the Pallet Town native. "Fine," Ash said, disappointed not being able to battle, to which Pikachu simply patted his trainer's head in sympathy. As the trio left the Battle Cafe, they earned multiple reactions from the people in the cafe. Most of them were now just simply watching in amusement at the antics of the three young teenagers, now finding it more funny than awkward, but a certain pair of eyes watched the scene play out a little bit more intrigued than the others. "Ash Ketchum? Now there's a name I haven't heard in a while," the man thought to himself. He took a sip of his coffee as he turned his attention to the window, where he could still see the group of three teens that had just come into the cafe. The purple-haired girl was still dragging the young Pallet Town trainer, currently complaining, and still seemed visibly embarrassed and angry at what her companion just did, whilst the other boy behind the two simply watched awkwardly as the two continued to argue. He then quickly thought back to what the girl had said about researching a temple in the Crown Tundra. "Seems like they are for the same reason I am." The man smiled to himself and took another drink of his coffee. "Looks like my little adventure just got a lot more interesting." "You really are quite dumb sometimes, Ash. What's wrong with wanting to have a battle? Can you not think about Pokemon and battles for 2 seconds and focus on what you actually have to do? How about you let me have fun for once instead of being all serious all the time?" Go watched on with slight amusement as his two closest friends continued to argue, something that had been going on ever since they left the cafe. Go had moved on pretty quickly from Ash's actions, since he was pretty used to him doing that kind of stuff, but clearly Chloe hadn't, and kept arguing with him about it ever since. He had a feeling this would happen eventually. The two of them always seemed like opposites. Chloe was the calm, cool and collected shy girl who usually would only focus on the task at hand, whilst Ash was the energetic and social kind of guy that would always get sidetracked and did what he wanted to do, no matter the situation. Although that being said, the two sometimes act like one another as well. Chloe has shown that she can have fun and let loose every once in a while, whilst Ash had also previously demonstrated that he can get serious when the situation demanded it. They seem so different, yet they can have some things in common as well. Grookey, Pikachu and Eevee, now following behind Go, also watched the seemingly pointless arguing continue, and were starting to get increasingly more worried about the two constantly bickering. "Don't worry you guys, I'm sure they'll get along eventually, I hope." Go wasn't entirely confident with his statement, but he had faith that in the future they could become great friends, despite their constant arguing at the moment. Opposites do attract one another after all. Nevertheless, the group of travelers continued on their way to the Hammerlock station, which was now being beautifully lit by multiple lanterns illuminating the night sky. When they finally arrived, Ash and Chloe were still mad at one another, but they had managed to tone down the constant fighting a little bit, as the excitement of going to the Crown Tundra quickly took over. They entered the surprisingly small train station and were greeted by a fairly young-looking man. "Hello and welcome to Hammerlock Station. What can I do for you three today?" said the man with a warm smile. "We would like to have 3 tickets to go to the Crown Tundra station, please," responded excitedly Go. "Of course. Just a moment." The man then typed something on his mini computer, and after a few moments, a ding sound was heard from the machine and the man handed over 3 tickets to Go. "Here you go, have a nice trip you 3. "Thank you," responded the 3 trainers simultaneously. "All right. I can't wait to get the Crown Tundra. I wonder what kind of Pokemon we will meet," exclaimed Ash. "Of course that'd be your first thought," Chloe muttered. "What did I ever do to you, Chloe? Do you have to complain about every single thing I say?" Ash suddenly snapped, tired of the girls seemingly picking on him for such a small reason. "If everything you say sounds like I'm listening to a 5-year-old, then yes, I do," Chloe replied calmly. Ash, now getting really tired of everybody using Iris's old saying of him being a little kid against him, growled in response as sparks of anger could now be seen between the 2 trainers. The trio's Pokemon sweat dropped whilst Go simply held his head, as their constant bickering that had toned down a bit earlier quickly came back in full swing. The group were then suddenly interrupted by multiple bursts of electricity, and the lights had abruptly stopped illuminating the station. Some loud mechanical noises could now also be heard alongside a really thick fog now being dispersed, resulting in everybody panicking as they could no longer see a thing of what was happening. "What in the world? Ash, Chloe, you okay?" Go asked in a slight panic. "Yeah, we're fine, Go. Speak for yourself, Ash. I can't see a thing." All right. Everybody calm down, we'll have this issue resolved soon, just stay still and don't panic," said the young man from earlier into a megaphone, though it did little to stop the people from worrying. Ash and Co quickly followed where the sound of the megaphone was coming from and eventually bumped into the young man. "What's going on, sir?" initially asked Ash. "I don't know, but I can't really try to figure it out if I can't even see because of this fog. I highly doubt this could have been done naturally. Someone must have turned off the energy to turn off the lights and then spread this thick fog everywhere," thought Go out loud. "Who in the world would do such a thing?" asked innocently Chloe. "Prepare for trouble because we would do such a thing. And make it double because of the chaos we will bring." Ash, Go and Chloe didn't have to think twice about the origins of the 2 voices, as Go, after realizing who it was, shouted angrily, "Come on, not you guys again. To protect the world from devastation, to unite all peoples within our nations, to denounce the evils of truth and love, to extend our reach to the stars above. Jesse. James. Team Rocket blasts off at the speed of light. Surrender now, or prepare to fight. Meowth, that's right. Wobbuffet. Do you have to say that every time you show up? It gets annoying really fast," asked Chloe, annoyed by Team Rocket's sudden appearance. "You dare criticize our wonderful motto? Why you?" Jesse had to be held back from attacking the young girl by James, Meowth and Wobbuffet. "Also, I hope you realize we only got to hear the dang motto because we can't see a thing with this fog," continued Go. "That's why we came prepared, for once." After a slap to the back of the head from Jesse, James continued and said, "We brung goggles that can see through any fog or sandstorm with 0 hindrances to our vision." "But doesn't it defeat the purpose if the people doing the motto are the only ones able to see it?" asked once again Chloe. "Quit it, purple-haired twerpet. It doesn't matter anyways. Once we steal all the Pokemon in the station, you not seeing our motto one time will be the last of our issues," Meowth proclaimed as he then pressed a button that made a decently sized machine in the middle of the building create a vacuum-like effect, making it try to suck in anything in its path. People and Pokemon alike were now desperately trying to hold on to anything to keep them from getting sucked in by the machine. "Arg, we have to find a way to get rid of this fog before dealing with Team Rocket's machine. We can't even see where the thing is," said Go whilst struggling to stay on his feet against the violent winds of the machine, with Grookey holding onto him as well. Ash thought about his possibilities on what to do. Calling out another Pokemon didn't seem like the best idea, as it would probably just get sucked up by the machine. So Pikachu was realistically his only option, even if he couldn't actually see him because of the fog. Soon enough, an old tactic from the past came to mind, though it had been a while since he had used it, so he feared Pikachu might have forgotten it, but considering their recent run-in with Dawn, he hoped Pikachu had remembered it as well. It was a long shot, but it might just work. He just needed to warn everybody first before he injured other Pokémon by accident. Luckily, he had a plan for that. "Hey sir, could I borrow that for a bit?" Ash asked strangely politely considering the situation whilst pointing at the megaphone the man had in his hands. Yeah sure," the man replied confused as he gave him the megaphone. "Thanks." Ash took a deep breath, approached the megaphone to his mouth and shouted. "Everybody take cover or lay on the ground, and cover your eyes as well." The people in the station including Go and Chloe did what he said and the hyperclass trainer finished by screaming, "Pikachu! Counter shield! Pika!" The surprised reaction by the electric mouse initially scared Ash, as he thought he had forgotten the move, but fortunately for him, Pikachu was simply confused as to why he would say that now, but he quickly caught on to what Ash wanted to do and grinned. The electric type swiftly got on his back and started spinning whilst using Thunderbolt, making Team Rocket have to cover their eyes as they were the only ones that had not listened to Ash's instructions, and since their goggles were no good against bright flashes, they were quickly blinded by multiple spinning yellow lights of electricity, causing the thick fog to disperse and the machine, who thankfully had yet to suck in any Pokémon, to explode after it got hit by multiple thunderbolts. "Alright. Nice going Pikachu," the trainer complimented his Pokémon. "Pie Pika Pie." The mouse replied now back on all fours still with a grin on his face. "Now give them your strongest Thunderbolt, full power. Not so fast twerp. We don't give up that easily, Wobbuffet do your thing." Jessie commanded as her psychic type immediately jumped in front of the group and took the Thunderbolt straight on, and with double the power, sent it straight back at Ash and Pikachu with Mirror Coat. "Cue quick Eevee. Copycat the Mirror Coat and send it right back." Chloe, acting on instinct, commanded her beloved Eevee to copy Wobbuffet's move. The normal type didn't even hesitate as it jumped in front of Pikachu and after its tail glowed pink, Eevee used Mirror Coat, which made the Pokémon flinch slightly from the double-powered Thunderbolt, but nevertheless managed to send back the beam of electricity which landed right in front of Team Rocket and sent them flying into the night sky. "How is that fair? The twerp using the Sinnoh Twerpet's move like that?" complained a frustrated Jessie, still soaring through the air. "Well, at least that tells us the twerp remembers his adventures with her, which is nice to see." Meowth then followed up. "Don't think that's very nice for us though," James added. Team Rocket's blasting off again, they all shouted simultaneously as they flew further into the sky. Once they saw that Team Rocket was gone for good, Ash and Chloe jumped for joy and were about to give each a high five. But they childishly remembered they were still mad at each other and scowled at each other instead and turned to congratulate their Pokémon, who just stared dumbfounded at their attitudes towards each other. The people in the building applauded the two trainers for their actions and the man working at the station came to thank them. "Thank you for saving the station from those criminals. Who knows what could have happened if you two didn't step in. You were awesome you two, nice going," Go added, earning a smile from his two companions. "Shame that Team Rocket had to cut the power source though. Our train will probably get delayed until they fix the issue." "Yeah, you're probably right. Oh well, I guess that gives us a bit more time to check out the city," Chloe replied, trying to look on the bright side. "You want to explore the city and have fun? Wow, that's probably the most surprising thing I've heard all day," Ash provoked uncharacteristically. "Shut it Ketchup. You would have been toast if I hadn't told Eevee to jump in and save you from that Mirror Coat. And you are supposed to be the 99th best trainer in the world, yet you can't even defeat Team Rocket on your own, huh? Nice joke," Chloe replied sassily to Ash's remark. "I didn't need your help, I would have been just fine without it, and what did you just call me?" "Do they always act like this?" whispered the man working at the station to Go. "No, but they've been fighting ever since this afternoon and they haven't stopped since," the Vermilion City replied. "That's a shame, they seem to make a good team." I know, Go said, hanging his head, knowing the pair were too childish to realize it. "Well, what should we do now guys?" Go started off, wanting to know what his companions thought about what they should do at the moment. They had just recently left the Hammerlock station where the young man working there announced that the station should be up and running by tomorrow midday and that their tickets bought earlier would still be valid then, which did upset some people, but they figured after Team Rocket's surprise appearance, it was understandable. I'm personally not tired yet, and after what happened with Team Rocket, I doubt you guys would just want to go to the Pokemon Center and sleep, so what's the plan? I want to find someone to battle. Let's go check the shops for some clothes. Ash and Chloe glared at each other when they both exclaimed their ideas at the same time. Feeling the tension rise even more between the two of them, Go quickly took control of the conversation before the fighting got out of hand again. How about we compromise? Let's go shopping first, because we do need some clothes to combat the weather in the Crown Tundra, but after, let's go watch Ash have a battle. It has been a while after all. Sounds good? Fine, sure, whatever, muttered the two others. Go really had to restrain himself this time from not saying anything. He thought the two were supposed to be friends, yet now, they acted like mortal enemies. Yeah, he knew their friendship mainly consisted of them being mutual friends with him, but he still thought they had at least known to get along with each other after their multiple travels together. After a few seconds, Go sighed and said, "All right, well, since you're the one who suggested it, Chloe, feel free to lead the way." Chloe's current hatred towards a certain raven-haired trainer was quickly replaced by excitement, as when she spotted a small building with glass doors and a shirt logo close to a bridge, she exclaimed, "All right, let's go check out that store first." She proceeded to rush to the building like her life depended on it and was soon followed by Go and a less enthusiastic Ash. It didn't take long before they arrived and Chloe quickly ran inside, similar to Ash in the Battle Cafe earlier, and said, "Wow, just look at this place." When Ash and Go entered the building, even they had to admit the place did look quite stunning. It wasn't the largest or more complex-looking store in the world, but the mix of the white glossy tiles and wooden flooring gave the store a modern look. It wasn't very crowded and there were a bunch of displays showing plenty of items ranging from regular t-shirts and shorts to shoes, hats, bags, gloves, anything you realistically would want from a clothing shop. "Yeah, even I have to admit this place looks pretty nice," Go said sincerely. "No kidding. Oh Evie, look at those shoes, and that sweater, and that beanie. I'm gonna waste my whole allowance on this place." EVV. Chloe and her Pokemon then proceeded to run around the whole place a bit too excitedly, earning strange looks from the little amount of people currently there, causing Ash and Go alongside their partner Pokemon to sweat drop. "And she calls me a kid," Ash said to himself, though loud enough for the others around him to hear. Go ignored the irony of Ash's word considering he basically did the same thing earlier at the Battle Cafe and said, "All right, well, whilst she's busy, let's go find something for when we go to the Crown Tundra tomorrow. Grookey, Pikachu, try not to cause too much trouble, okay?" The electric type gave the young trainer a thumbs up with a wink signally, "Don't worry, we won't." But as soon as the trainers left to explore the store, Pikachu turned around only to find Grookey running around hitting every mannequin on display with its branch, causing them to rock back and forth to the point of almost falling over. "Pika!" shrieked a now panicking Pikachu as he chased around the grass-type starter in hopes of stopping him from doing any more damage to the store. "I think that's enough for today, Evie. Any more and I won't be able to carry all this stuff," said an exasperated Chloe, holding at least a dozen clothing items in her arms, and earning a worried look from her Pokemon. It had been about 20 minutes since the group's arrival at the clothing store, and during that time, Chloe had basically run around the whole store and picked up anything and everything that looked even mildly interesting to her. "All right, let's go find the boys and get out of here. Now where could they be?" she finished. It didn't take long before she eventually found Go, who was sitting on a small bench in front of the changing rooms while scrolling through his Rotom phone. "Hey Go, I'm done shopping now, so where's the other sorry excuse for a researcher?" she asked, referencing Ash. "You two really need to learn to get along," he muttered. "He's just trying on a jacket we found to face the cold." The door to the changing rooms then opened and soon Ash emerged from it. Speaking of which, Ash came out wearing a not too thick orange jacket with multiple zippers and 2 pockets at the front. The main zipper of the jacket was slightly opened at the top, allowing them to see to white cotton coming from the inside that was the main protection against the cold. He had also ditched his shorts and was now wearing slightly ripped dark jeans where an extra layer of cotton under the ripped parts could be seen. Finally, he had taken off his hat, which revealed his raven black hair, but it looked a bit more tamed and combed than usual. Chloe hated to admit it, but he did look quite good, and this new look made him look more like an actual researcher going on a mission, but she would never say it out loud. "Wow Ash, looking good." Go approved with a thumbs up. "What do you think, Chloe?" he then asked his friend. What? Oh yeah, he looks okay I guess, makes Ketchup over here look like less of a kid, she said a bit flustered. Whatever Chloe, I didn't need your opinion anyways. And could you stop calling me Ketchup for Arceus' sake? Replied a frustrated Ash as he went back into the changing room. You two really are a lost cause, sighed Go. A few minutes later Ash came back out of the changing room wearing his normal clothes again, with his trusty hat and all. Well, seems like we're all done here, so let's pay and go find Ash someone to battle. Go said, earning a huge grin from his fellow research partner. Yes. Finally. But before that, do you guys know where Pikachu and Grookey are? I haven't seen them since we came here. Asked the Palatown trainer, only earning a shrug for his companions. Luckily for them, a few seconds later, Grookey out of nowhere, jumped onto Go's head, making him yelp a bit at the sudden appearance. Well there's Grookey, but where's Pikachu? Questioned Go. Rookie, exclaimed the grass type while pointing behind him. The trio turned their heads towards where the Pokémon was indicating and they saw Pikachu, looking like it had just finished battling 20 legendary Pokémon in a row. He had bags under his eyes and was basically dragging himself across the floor of the store. Pika, said faintly the little mouse whilst trying to hold one of its paws in the air. What on earth happened to you buddy? Asked worriedly its trainer. Unknowingly to the rest group, Pikachu had been running around, fixing and trying to stop all of the chaos the monkey Pokémon was causing for the past 20 minutes, and whilst he did succeed, it took a lot of effort from the electric type. From almost breaking every mannequin in the store, to almost breaking the glass mirrors, he had been running non-stop. That being said, the mouse only replied by a simple gesture signaling, "Don't bother asking," not wanting to waste their time by explaining everything that had happened in detail. Sure. If you say so, bud." Ash picked up his starter and awkwardly laid him on top of his shoulder where he simply flopped, struggling to keep an eye open. Okay well, we found them I guess so let's get out of here, Go said, moving on from whatever happened to Pikachu. Alright. Now I just need to find my opponent for the day, the hyperclass trainer exclaimed out loud whilst scanning the area for a person to battle after exiting the doors of the clothing store with his bags. You do realize what time it is, right? It's close to midnight already and I doubt there would be another person as dumb as you who would still want to battle at this hour, Chloe remarked smartly. Please don't start fighting, please don't start fighting. Silently prayed Go, not wanting to deal with this again. Ash growled at the girl for what seemed like the millionth time today and said, plenty of people want to battle at this hour. We just need to find them. Yeah sure Ketchup, why you, I wouldn't mind a battle, suddenly said a deep voice coming from behind the group. The trio turned around only to be found face to face with a man looking to be in his 40s with brown hair and black eyes. He had a big green coat and wore pants of the same color. The man looked pretty menacing, almost towering over the group with a sly smile. The Vermilion City trainers were about to say something to each other about his intimidating stature, but were beaten by Ash, who upon examining him for a little bit, exclaimed mouth agape. Brandon. Ash couldn't believe it. It had been so long since he had seen the Frontier Brain that it felt pretty weird just to casually see him again here in Galar. He hadn't changed his appearance at all, with the same clothes and all, yet he somehow looked pretty grown since the last time he saw him. Brandon laughed at his reaction and extended out his hand. It's been a while hasn't it, Ketchum? He simply said, this time with a less intimidating smile. No kidding. Why are you doing here in Galar? Ash asked excitedly as he met his handshake. Well turns out I'm here for the same reason as you three, I'm going to the Crown Tundra to explore the ruins. The trio looked at each other confused. Wait, how did you know we were going to the Crown Tundra? Asked again the Palatown trainer. Well the scene you made at the Battle Cafe earlier was pretty hard to miss, so I overheard that you guys were headed to the same place I was. Yeah I guess he said Ash sheepishly, earning glares from his companions. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Brandon, this is my friend and research partner Go, and that weird and awkward girl over there is Chloe. Shut it Ketchup, screamed the purple-haired girl, as a vein could be seen popping on her forehead. Brandon chuckled at her reaction and then said, nice to meet you too. Brandon, now where have I heard that name before? Go thought to himself out loud. I'm the final Frontier Brain of the Kanto Battle Frontier, so that's probably where you know me from. Go went wide-eyed as the man explained who he was. Whoa, a frontier brain, and the strongest one at that. No way. Wait, so how do you know Ash then? Ketchum over here is one of the few people to have actually completed the battle frontier by earning all the symbols, and I ran into him in Sinnoh again as well when he was traveling there. Brandon explained. Ash beat the Kanto battle frontier? Supposedly only composed of trainers good enough to be in the Elite Four? Yeah, we're definitely not talking about the same Ash here, said Chloe, refusing to believe he of all people actually beat every frontier brain in Kanto. Ash was about to retort angrily at her comment, but Brandon beat him to the reply. Believe it or not, he did. You can say anything you want about his childish attitude outside of battling. Ash quickly glared at Brandon, who simply smiled and continued what he was saying. But his skills in battles are remarkable to say the least. Yeah, no, I'm still not convinced, the purple-haired girl reaffirmed, not believing for even a second that Ash was that good of a trainer. Then let him prove it. Ash, you wanted a battle, right? The trainer in question grinned as the frontier brain finished his sentence. Of course. I never say no to a challenge, Pikachu, let's get going. After Ash got no response whatsoever from his starter, he looked around and noticed that his partner was nowhere in sight. Huh? Pikachu? Where'd you go, buddy? Go lightly tapped his shoulder and pointed towards a little bench next to a tree, where Pikachu could be seen dozing off, and showing no signs of waking up. Ash sweat dropped and said, oh yeah, that. Well, I should probably just use another Pokemon. The now group of four eventually found a battlefield in the park close to where they were, and after Go had picked up the currently sleeping Pikachu, he and Chloe alongside their Pokemon sat down on a bench next to the field, where the two trainers were currently staring each other down. Do I have to watch this battle? I got tired enough from carrying all my bags, Chloe said, clearly not wanting to sit through this. I mean, you don't have to, but give Ash a chance to show you what he can do in an actual battle. Trust me, he's way better than you probably think, and it looks like Eevee is interested, Go replied. Eevee! Eevee! Exclaimed the normal type whilst jumping up and down waiting for the battle to start, which made Chloe sigh. Fine, let's see how badly Ketchum can lose, she said, leaning forward and holding her hand on her cheek in a bored fashion. Back on the field, Brandon and Ash were still staring at each other until the frontier brain broke the silence. All right, Ketchum, ready for a rematch? You bet. Ash then remembered they were missing something and asked his companion. Hey Go, do you mind if you referee? The research fellow hesitated, questioning if he was the most qualified person to referee a battle, but nevertheless agreed. He laid Pikachu, who he had in arms, on the bench and went to the center of the field. Is a one-on-one fine with you guys? They both nodded in response, and Go then said in some sort of weird, deep-fake announcer voice. Alright then. The Pokemon battle between Ash of Pallet Town and the Frontier Brain Brandon is about to commence. Trainers, you may bring out your Pokemon. Way to be overdramatic, Go, Chloe simply commented, to which Go scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. Lucario, I choose you. Regirock, I need your assistance. Say what now? Said Chloe, thinking she had surely misheard what the Pyramid King just said. It turns out she didn't, as after Ash's familiar Lucario came out of its Pokeball to Go's right, on Go's left, Brandon had actually sent out a Regirock. The field became awfully quiet for a while as the two Vermilion City trainers simply stared wide-eyed at the legendary Pokemon. Eventually, Go regained his composure and then walked backwards away from the field, and, after a final deep breath, raised a hand in the air and exclaimed. Battle begin. No time to waste, Lucario. Get in there with a force palm. The steel fighting type immediately rushed forwards towards the Regirock whilst building up energy in his paw. Set up an iron defense, the Pyramid King ordered. Right before Lucario reached its target, Regirock's body glowed a shiny white color and crossed its arms. The Aura Pokemon's force palm then collided with the rock type, creating a deafening loud screech and making everybody nearby cover their ears as it sounded like Lucario's paw collided with straight metal. The protection the Brandon's Regirock had created was too strong and forced Lucario to back away, growling. You're telling me that Ash is supposed to keep up with that legendary Pokemon? Peeved. There's no point in even trying, thought out loud Chloe as she pulled out her Rotom phone and started to scroll through it. Don't let up, Lucario. Use Double Team and run around Regirock. Ash said with a grin, trying to confuse the rock-type Pokemon. "Burroar!" exclaimed the Aura Pokemon as he did what he was told. Brandon didn't seem fazed at all by Ash's commands, and neither did his Pokemon. He simply commanded, "Lock on, then use Stone Edge." The legendary Pokemon made some incomprehensible noises, and then the braille pattern on its body glowed red and released a red ring at the multiple Lucarios, but focused its trajectory on only the real one. Once it had found its target, Regirock sent multiple stone pillars towards the single Lucario, which sent him flying back upon impact. "Lucario, you alright?" Ash asked as he saw he was pretty bruised, to which his Pokemon didn't say anything but nodded a yes in response. "This isn't working, keep your distance and use Aura Sphere." Lucario then ran around the field once again, but this time keeping good distance between him and the opposing Pokemon, and fired off multiple Aura Spheres from different angles, which did hit Brandon's Regirock multiple times with the super effective move. Iron Defense once again. The Rock Peak Pokemon's body glowed white once again and created another shield of steel, which negated a good amount of the damage Lucario kept dealing. Lock on again. Don't let the lock on hit you, and get in close again with reversal. The Aura Pokemon, whilst being chased by the red ring of lock on, went towards Brandon's Regirock and punched the Pokemon with his fist glowing orange, which made the Pokemon stagger back from the damage, but in the process made it easier for the lock on to find Lucario. Brandon frowned at this and said, "Rookie mistake Ash, you may have done damage, but you just made it easier for the lock on to hit you, Stone Edge Regirock." Ash didn't seem fazed by Brandon's comment at all. In fact, it only made him grin confidently, which greatly confused the Pyramid King. As the Stone Edge that appeared from behind Lucario approached, the Aura Pokemon simply kept staring at the Pokemon in front of him. "Focus on your Aura, Lucario." Evaded by jumping backwards. The said Pokemon closed its eyes, and when he sensed the Stone Edge right behind him, he jumped backwards, which made the Stone Edge pass underneath him and hit Regirock instead. Brandon looked in shock as Ash had successfully turned his lock on against him. Go, and even Chloe, who had now diverted her attention back to the battle when she noticed Ash actually doing alright, seemed equally shocked at just how fast Ash came up with a solution. "Alright. Nice job, Lucario. I should have known you had something up your sleeve, always as quick on your feet as you used to be, I see." Brandon smirked before revealing. "But I believe you forgot something, Ash." The comment from the Frontier Brain made Ash look at him questioningly. "Lock on makes the move continue until it hits its original target, no matter if it hits something on its way." Ash went wide-eyed, realizing he let his guard down too fast, and then an explosion and a cry from Lucario was heard on the battlefield, as the fighting steel type was sent flying once again. "Lucario!" shouted its trainer worriedly. "No more time wasting, Regirock. Finish this with Hyper Beam. Quick, block it with Aura Sphere," screamed Ash in a desperate attempt to avoid the damage from the Hyper Beam. With a weak cry, the Aura Pokemon gathered all the remaining energy it had and made a ball of Aura energy and extended it in front of him right before the Hyper Beam hit. The Pokemon staggered back quite a bit as it desperately tried to block the attack. Chloe watched on as Lucario kept getting pushed back by the sheer force of the Hyper Beam. At this point, she was pretty convinced that Ash had lost the battle, despite Lucario's best attempt to combat the normal type move. Not that she was surprised though. Ash was facing a well-trained legendary Pokemon after all, and since she wasn't necessarily convinced by his supposedly good battling skills, it was no shock to her to see him lose. Just as she was about to brag to go that she knew there was no point in even trying, she was interrupted by Ash. "Lucario." The Aura Pokemon looked slightly behind him whilst still holding the Aura Sphere in front of him and noticed his trainer looking at him with a calm and determined smile on his face. "Just keep calm and listen to me, alright?" Lucario nodded slightly as it kept struggling to block the Hyper Beam. "Close your eyes and let the Hyper Beam push you back a bit." What? With all the damage Lucario's has taken, lowering its guard doesn't seem like the best idea. Wait. Brandon cut off Go as the Frontier Brain looked intrigued at the hyperclass trainer. "Let's see what he does." Go listened unconvincingly to the Pyramid King as Chloe was also questioning Ash's decision-making. Lowering your only defense whilst you were getting hit by one of the most powerful moves a Pokemon can learn didn't seem like the smartest play ever. She turned her head towards the raven-haired trainer and saw an expression on his face that she didn't recognize. He had this look in his eyes of pure determination, yet at the same time, looked calm and cool. She quickly glanced at Lucario to see him equally as determined as its trainer, and slowly but surely lowered the force of his aura's sphere, making the sphere smaller and pushing him back even more, to the point where he was only a few feet away from Ash. Stay cool and let the aura flow throughout your body. Lucario did what he was told, and thanks to putting less force into his attack, it allowed him to store more aura and made his body glow of blue energy. Keep storing more and more aura, Ash continued. The rest of the park became dead quiet, and only the hyper beam that Regirock was firing and the slight breeze of the cold night of Hammerlock could be heard as everyone kept their eyes on the Pallet Town trainer and his Pokémon. The way the young trainer commanded his Pokémon with his eyes closed and with such calmness was beyond impressive. Lower your right arm but keep the aura sphere up. The fighting type didn't reply but slowly did what his trainer instructed. Good. Now wait for it. Ash then closed his eyes as Lucario kept radiating more and more aura, all whilst still holding a now minuscule aura sphere in front of him which somehow was still blocking the full-powered hyper beam that Regirock was still firing. It was as if Ash was trying to sense alongside Lucario the perfect time to strike. Finally, after around 10 seconds of dead silence, Ash quickly reopened his eyes and exclaimed at the top of his lungs, "Force Palm now." In the blink of an eye, the Aura Pokémon immediately opened his eyes and let out a fierce cry as he let the Aura Sphere he was holding in his left arm disintegrate, and with all the aura he had stored up, put his right paw in front of him which collided with the Hyper Beam and created a huge explosion that shook the leaves off of the nearby trees from the force and left a huge black smoke on the field. Go and Chloe were mouth agape whilst Ash and Brandon simply waited nervously for the smoke to clear. After a few seconds, the smoke finally disappeared and the trainers saw Lucario just standing there. Originally it seemed like Lucario was fine, but soon after the Aura Pokémon abruptly let out a weak cry and collapsed to the ground. "Lucario!" screamed its trainer worriedly as he went to check his condition. Nobody really knew what to do for a while until Grookey hopped on to Go's head and smacked him with his stick which reminded him what he had to do. "Oh yeah, Lucario is unable to battle, so the winner is the Frontier Brain Brandon," Go exclaimed, back in his announcer voice. Ash didn't even process what Go had said, as he was too busy tending to his Pokémon. "You okay, Lucario?" he asked with a worried voice kneeling beside him. "Brawr," the Pokémon cried out weakly in response with a reassuring smile on his face. The Pallet Town trainer only looked up when he saw the shadows of the Pyramid King alongside his Pokémon approach him slowly with a smirk on his face. "Well, I guess that's that," he started off. "Yeah, it might have been a while since I saw you in battle, but I'm glad to see you've improved quite a bit, Ketchum." "Really?" Ash responded, surprised by the praise. "Yeah, really. No way the Ash I faced back in the Kanto Battle Frontier would have ever kept that calm under so much pressure from the Hyper Beam, and the way you instructed Lucario to lower its guard, only a Pokémon who had full faith in its trainer would ever do that, and if you hadn't taken so much damage at the beginning, the battle could have ended very differently." Ash stayed silent for a bit as he averted his attention back to his weak Lucario. "Maybe, but Regirock still barely looks injured. I guess we still have a long way to go, Lucario." The Pokémon in question kept staring at the Regirock now towering over him and let out another exasperated cry. "With the Lucario able to control its aura as perfectly as yours can, I have no doubt you two will be able to reach greater heights together and become one really strong team," added on finally the older man. "Thanks, Brandon. Now you take a nice rest, Lucario," he said after returning his Pokémon to his Pokeball. Well, started off Go whilst approaching the two trainers. "Seems like your battles just keep getting crazier and crazier, huh, Ash?" The hyperclass trainer chuckled a laugh before saying, "I guess you could say that." Brandon then turned his attention to behind Go where Chloe was just standing there idly. "Well? Are you convinced by his battle skills now?" he asked whilst addressing the purple-haired girl. Truth be told, Chloe's view on Ash's battling had changed a bit, as she clearly saw that he wasn't your normal trainer you find everywhere, and that he was something different. He didn't back down no matter how strong his opponent, and it showed just how experienced he actually was by commanding Lucario like he did. But of course, she wasn't going to say out loud to boost his ego, so she responded instead with a pout on her face. "Of course I'm not. If Ketchup over here would have just known how lock-on actually worked, he wouldn't have let his guard down like a dummy and led to him being under pressure from the Hyper Beam in the first place. Even I know what lock-on does, and Mr. I beat the Kanto battle frontier, doesn't? Of course I know what lock-on does, quickly defended Ash, standing back up to face her. I just, forgot. Sure you did. Well, if you know so much more about battling than I do, then why don't you just don't battle me and prove it? He said provokingly whilst readying Sir Fetched's Pokeball. Alright, you two calm down, Go interrupted whilst separating the two trainers from each other. Brandon chuckled before suggesting, let's all go to the Pokemon Center and get our Pokemon healed up, it's getting pretty late. Ash sighed. You're right, alright Pikachu, let's get going and you're still asleep, great. Pika, the Pokemon co-ed quietly, as if it was having a very enjoyable dream. Well, desperate times call for desperate measures. Ash then pulled out Pikachu's Pokeball from his bag, but right as he was about to aim it at the electric type, he woke up instantly, and without any hesitation, shot a powerful thunderbolt at Ash, and then proceeded to slowly walk towards the Pokemon Center ahead of everyone else. Guess he still hates being in his Pokeball, huh? Commented the Pyramid King. You can say that again, replied the raven-haired trainer, who laid on the ground electrocuted. I didn't even know you had Pikachu's Pokeball with you. If I'm being honest, I thought you'd leave it at Professor Oak Lab or something because he always wants to be by your side, added on Go. Oh please, anyone who'd be willing to stay by Ketchup's side 24/7 would have to be a new level of insane. Chloe chimed in. Really Chloe? Screamed in reply Ash, fed up with her putting him down. Go and Brandon just laughed awkwardly as they made their way to the Pokemon Center. Your Pokemon are all healed up and feeling as refreshed as ever, a familiar nurse said with a smile. Thanks Nurse Joy, thanked a certain raven-haired trainer. No problem. We hope to see you again. Ash attached Lucario's Pokeball to his belt and sat down at the table where Go, Chloe and Brandon, who had his Pokemon healed a few minutes ago, were making small talk. Well, we should probably get to bed soon, it's getting pretty late and we should probably get some sleep for tomorrow's trip to the Crown Tundra, said Go seeing his friend approaching them. Ash then had a sudden idea. Hey Brandon, since we're going to the same place anyways, why don't you just tag along with us? We're both going to research the ruins after all. I don't see why not, simply replied the Frontier Brain. Then I'll meet up with you at 11 a.m. tomorrow in front of the Pokemon Center. Aren't you staying here at the Pokemon Center? Asked Chloe. An old friend of mine offered me to crash at his place close to here, so I'll be staying the night there. Ah okay I see, we'll see you tomorrow then, Chloe said. See ya tomorrow Brandon, added Go and Ash simultaneously as Brandon made his way out of the Pokemon Center with a wave. Welp guys, I think it's time for us to hit the hay as well, the Vermilion City researcher said with a yawn. I second that. See ya tomorrow Go. Oh and I guess you too Ketchup, Chloe said as she went up to her room in the Pokemon Center. Do you know what I did to annoy her so much? Ash asked desperately to Go. Well technically, you did embarrass us in front of a whole cafe, said you didn't need her help when you battled Team Rocket, insulted her, tried to provoke her into a battle. Yeah well she started it, whatever, let's just forget about it and go to bed. Fine. Whilst the moon beautifully illuminated the room where the two researchers were staying, Ash stared at the ceiling for what felt like ages. Go had fallen asleep a while ago and Pikachu soon followed suit, yet he himself couldn't. He was thinking about his battle with Brandon from earlier, and whilst he knew he was up against a legendary Pokemon and a very talented Frontier Brain, he still couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He bested him before, so why couldn't he do it now? Was his strategy all wrong? Was he overcomplicating things? Did he not trust Lucario's power enough? He shook his head after that last thought. That couldn't be it, he always had and always will have full faith in his Pokemon's abilities. But maybe there was something missing about that thought. When he thought about it, he really hadn't been using Lucario much at all since he evolved, and maybe because of that, they weren't as prepared to face such a powerful opponent together. Right when he was about to forget about it for now and fall asleep, he felt a sudden burst of aura coming from his bag and was soon followed by the quiet sound of a Pokeball opening, as Lucario suddenly appeared in front of Ash. The trainer stared at his fighting steel type for a little bit, noticing the concerned gaze in his eyes, and Ash soon pointed to the balcony where they could talk without fear of waking up Go or Pikachu. Ash quietly got up and with his Pokemon alongside him, made their way to the small balcony. Once they were outside, Ash closed the sliding doors behind him carefully, then leaned onto the railing and stared at the night sky with his Pokemon next to him. Galar's night sky sure is pretty, don't you think? Reminds me of when you evolved here. Lucario responded silently and simply kept looking at the stars. After a while of silence, Ash asked, "You're disappointed about today's battle against Brandon too, right?" Lucario once again didn't say anything, but this time looked at the ground, frowning slightly. "They sure were strong, we barely even got some real damage in." He chuckled the final part. "You know, Lucario, I've been wanting to apologize for not using you a lot in battles lately." Lucario immediately put his paw on his trainer's shoulder and looked at him as if to say that he didn't need to apologize for that. "It's true, I've been too focused on training my other Pokemon that I forgot that I had you ever since you hatched you from that egg and you recognized my aura. Truth is, I kinda felt like ever since you evolved, you were already super strong, so there was no point in battling with you as much. But that battle against Brandon proved to me that we still have a long journey ahead of us, both you and me." Lucario let out a quiet cry but let Ash continue. "It finally hit me whilst we were battling that you have this amazing potential with the aura you have, yet I brushed it off in favor of other things, but I'm not going to make that mistake anymore." Ash averted his gaze back to Lucario. "You chose me as your trainer because you knew I could help you with your aura, so I think it's time that we use that aura to make you even stronger, so starting tomorrow, we'll train even harder, so next time we battle Brandon, we'll give him a battle like he's never seen before. You with me, Lucario?" "Brawr!" exclaimed the aura Pokemon. "That's the spirit," Ash ended as he fist bumped his partner. Unbeknownst to the pair, a certain purple-haired girl was also having trouble sleeping, and subsequently led to her listening in to Ash's conversation on the balcony next to hers. Chloe had been quietly watching from the glass door of her room as she observed curiously with her Eevee the exchange between the pair. When she saw the Pallet Town trainer finally return his Lucario to his Pokeball and make his way back inside, she sighed. "I'll never understand that guy." Chloe then picked up her Eevee in arms and said, "Well, Eevee, we should get some sleep too. Don't want to be too tired for tomorrow's adventure now, do we?" "Evui," agreed her Pokemon. Chloe laid down on her bed and pulled up the bedsheet covers, with her starter Pokemon quickly cuddling next to her. She closed her eyes and muttered the words, "Stupid ketchup," before proceeding to fall into a deep slumber. Chloe awoke from her slumber in an unfamiliar place. She looked around and the only thing she saw was pure darkness, with nothing else present to fill the empty space. "Huh? Where am I?" she thought out loud. The purple-haired girl walked around for a bit, in search of any sign of life. Eventually, after a while, she found Ash and Go just standing there in the middle of the darkness, both with unreadable expressions on their faces. She ran towards them and said, "Hey guys, where are W?" Chloe was interrupted by the sound of one of Ash's Pokeballs opening and the appearance of Ash's Lucario, stopping her right in her tracks. Lucario stared at the girl somewhat menacingly and stood firmly in front of Ash and Go, almost trying to tell Chloe not to come any closer. "Hey, what was that for ketchup?" Chloe shouted at the trainer. Ash laughed in an uncharacteristically manner, and Go started talking. "We decided you won't be coming with us to the Crown Tundra, sorry not sorry," he said sarcastically with a small laugh. Chloe stared at them, thinking they had gone insane, and replied, "Huh? What's wrong with you two? And why are you acting so strange?" she asked. "Peeved, we're not acting strange," started off Ash. "We just realized there'd be no point in bringing such a useless trainer like you to our research mission," he shrugged. "What?" She was about to lash out at the smirking Pallet Town native but was once again stopped by Lucario. "These two are right. You'd just be a hindrance and another thing we'd have to worry about," added Brandon, seemingly appearing out of thin air. Chloe was too baffled to speak as she kept trying to get past Lucario with very little success. "Well, I think we're done here, let's go guys," Ash said as he turned away from the Vermilion City girl alongside Go and Brandon. What? Hey, wait. Just hold up for a second." Chloe once again tried to push past Lucario, who now got tired of her weak attempts to get past him and shoved her to the ground aggressively. "How about you go back to tending the plants at school, Chloe? It seems to be the only thing you're destined for in life," her childhood friend said jokingly, earning a somewhat demonic laugh from Brandon and Ash. "Go," she said, quietly and weakly from the ground. "All right, fun's over," yawned Ash. Lucario, Get rid of her with an aura sphere, he said, still not looking at her. Chloe didn't have time to argue when Lucario suddenly sent an aura sphere on a crash course towards her. She stared wide-eyed at the blue ball and screamed. "No, Evie." Chloe quickly stood up from her bed and looked around frantically in distress. It took a while before she fully came back to her senses, but after realizing she was back at the Pokemon Center, she breathed a sigh of relief. "Oh, just a dream. Geez." The purple-haired girl quickly checked her Rotom phone. 8 a.m. Great, now what am I going to do until we leave? Chloe laid back down on the bed exasperated and thought back to the dream. It was so strange, and even though it was clearly a dream, she couldn't help but think more deeply about it. A hindrance to Ash, Go and Brandon. As if. Yeah, maybe she wasn't the best trainer, or the best researcher, or the best traveler. She shook her head and forced herself to forget about it for now. Just a dream, she repeated in her head a couple times. She laid there for a few more moments, until she noticed her only Pokemon was no longer on her bed with her, and then went wide-eyed when she realized her Eevee had flown across the room due to her waking up so fast. She got up and quickly went to check on her starter. "Eevee, are you alright?" "Eevee," cried her Pokemon in an exasperated manner, laying head first on the floor of the room. "Sorry about that, I just had the weirdest nightmare." Bang! Chloe jumped and screeched at the sudden sound, still a little startled from whatever her dream was. The sound seemed to have come from the glass doors, so she stood up and walked on over cautiously to inspect. She scanned the balcony and eventually found the object that was most likely the origin of the sound. Chloe opened the door and picked up the small trinket that collided with the glass doors and looked at it strangely. "A tin can? Where'd that come from?" "All right. That's your first hit. Nice going," exclaimed a familiar voice. Chloe looked down to the battlefield behind the Pokemon Center and saw none other than Ash standing there with a couple dozen small metal cans, some of which he held in his hands, and others which he kept in a cardboard box. In front of him, Lucario stood there a good distance away from Ash with his eyes closed, looking really focused on something. Then, without any warning, Ash threw one of the cans into the air and Lucario shot an aura sphere, presumably trying to hit the can, although it missed by quite a bit. "Back to another miss. Don't let up, Lucario, you're improving. You just have to focus harder on your aura." "Brawr!" cried quietly the fighting steel type as it kept its eyes closed and prepared another aura sphere. Eevee eventually got curious and went to join Chloe on the balcony, jumping on her head and looking down at the field. "Well, since I doubt we'll be able to go back to sleep, let's go check on what exactly he's doing with all these tin cans," she said, looking back at the metal concurrently in her hand, as her partner Pokemon replied with a happy cry. Chloe went back inside alongside her Pokemon and quickly got changed, fixed her hair, and started making her way down to the battlefield. As she got out of her room, she noticed the door to Ash and Go's room was slightly opened. She peeked her head inside the door frame and noticed Go still out like a light, sleeping happily with Grookey in his arms, and Pikachu also sleeping in the corner of the room. She chuckled lightly and closed the door quietly as she went downstairs. The main room of the Pokemon Center was completely empty, apart from Nurse Joy adjusting something behind the counter, who quickly noticed the Vermilion City girl make her arrival to the lobby and gave her a warm smile. "Good morning. Another early bird, I see." Chloe gave a small laugh and replied, looking at the tin can in her hand. "Yeah, I woke up from a dream when this hit the door to the balcony, and when I saw Ash outside, I figured I should check out what he is doing this early in the morning." "That's fair enough. He's been at it for half an hour now. I wonder what's got him so determined to train at this time. Anyways, I have to go get some stuff in the back. The door to your right should lead you straight to the battlefield." "All right. Thanks, Nurse Joy." The women in question simply replied with a smile and wave and left to another part of the Pokemon Center, and Chloe made her way to the field. As she was walking, she thought back to Nurse Joy's question on why Ash would be up so early. He typically wakes up pretty late, so it really was strange behavior for him. She thought back to last night when she overheard his conversation with Lucario, and presumed that was the main cause of his early wake-up. Guess he wasn't kidding when he said he wanted to train with Lucario more. She chuckled as she finally arrived at the battlefield, and soon saw Ash with a new batch of tin cans in his arms and Lucario standing in the exact same position as before, still with his eyes closed. "Stay focused, you're getting there," the trainer said, trying to motivate his Pokemon as much as possible. Lucario let out a quiet cry and, after a couple seconds, Ash threw one of the tin cans into the sky. Lucario immediately started building up an aura-sphere and, still with his eyes closed, shot it towards the can. Unfortunately, it missed again, to which both trainer and Pokémon simultaneously sighed. Suddenly, Ash got hit with a small trinket on the head. Ow, huh. He looked around for a bit and eventually found Chloe standing next to the battlefield alongside Eevee with a smirk on her face. You should really watch where you're throwing those, that one hit my balcony door. The Vermilion City girl said. Oh, so that's where that one went. I wondered why it never came back. Chloe deadpanned as Ash recalled Lucario, telling him to take a break and picked up the can Chloe threw at him. Ash then went to sit on the bench that was just beside his companion. So, care to explain why you're up this early, Ketchup? I have a name, you know. What was that, Ketchup? Chloe said, pretending to not have heard him. Ash sighed, knowing there was no point in arguing. Both Kanto natives had visibly calmed down from yesterday and they were no longer fighting, although that didn't mean they were particularly very respectful towards each other still. Well, I really wanted to get some training in today, so I decided to wake up earlier to get a head start. 8 a.m. seems a bit excessive though, especially since we all stayed up quite late last night. Chloe commented as she sat down on the bench as well, petting Eevee who took a seat on her lap to get some extra sleep. Yeah, I guess, but since we're going to the Crown Tundra later, I won't really have a lot of time to train, and I really owe this to Lucario after that battle against Brandon. Chloe considered mentioning the fact that she had overheard his conversation on the balcony last night, but opted to keep quiet and listen. It really made me realize that I still have a lot to learn as a trainer. Yeah, I might be in the hyperclass already, but if I'm being realistic, I'm not even close to the likes of Leon or Lance yet. I still have a lot to do if I want to accomplish my dream of being a Pokemon master, he said as he stared up at the sky. Ash's statement made Chloe think. If Ash isn't even close to reaching his dream, where does that leave me? I don't even know what my dream is yet, she thought to herself, as she stared at the ground frowning. Ash quickly noticed her silence and said, thinking about your own dream, huh? Seemingly reading her mind. That's none of your business, Ketchup. The purple-haired girl replied flustered, looking away from him, which caused Ash to laugh out loud. Don't worry, sometimes it takes time to find who you really want to be in the future. Easy for you to say, you've had a dream to chase since you were little, Chloe said while pouting. True, but I've met plenty of people who took plenty of time before they found what they wanted to do. Considering you're friends with Go, I highly doubt it, she firmly said. I'm not joking. For example, there's this girl I traveled with back in Kalos that when she decided to leave home, she didn't have the slightest idea of what she wanted to do, but after a while, she found her goal, and chased after it with everything she had. Chloe was still skeptical. Okay, but if you say she didn't have a dream when leaving her home, then why did she leave in the first place? Ash chuckled, scratched the back of his head nervously and said, well, there were two reasons actually. First was because her mother was a really successful Rhyhorn racer, and she wanted her daughter to be the same, so she left to avoid having to train with her mother. The second reason was actually because she wanted to find me. Chloe looked at him strangely, so he explained further. Basically, she saw that I was in the region, and she recognized me as a childhood friend from a summer camp back in Pallet Town, and she wanted to see me again and return something I gave to her back then. Ash's explanation only made Chloe look at him even more strangely. Wait, so, let me get this straight, this girl that you traveled with had no idea what she wanted to do in life, so she left home to go find a random guy she suddenly remembered existed, traveled with him for a while, and somehow, she found what she wanted to do because of it. The Pallet Town trainer nodded as if it was the most normal thing in the world. Yeah, and she even got really close to accomplishing her dream of becoming Kalos' queen. The purple-haired girl was starting to get a bit irritated. How is that supposed to make me feel better about my future when your example is your girlfriend from Kalos who just randomly found her dream running around randomly throughout an entire region? Hey, I'm just trying to help, retorted angrily Ash. Look, Chloe, first of all, she's not my girlfriend, and second of all, the reason she found her dream in the first place was because she exposed herself to new experiences by traveling and exploring the world. If you just sit there and complain about it instead of actually trying to find what you want to do, it's obviously going to take a long time before you find it, and you'll be stuck tending the flowers at school whilst everybody else enjoys themselves. How about you go back to tending the plants at school, Chloe? It seems to be the only thing you're destined for in life. The words from her dream rang in her mind. Chloe looked down at the ground, defeated. Ash immediately regretted snapping at her, as she knew she was just frustrated and had just made it even worse for her, so he sighed and kneeled down in front of her. Look, you're right. I don't really know what you're going through. I shouldn't have tried giving advice on something I know little about, so I'm sorry. Ash then stood up and spread his arms, back in a more cheerful mood. But hey, you have plenty of time ahead of you, so just take it slow and I know you'll be fine. I believe in you. He finished cheerfully, trying to cheer her up. Chloe looked at him for a while before eventually letting out a small laugh and saying, "You're right, thanks Ash, and I'm sorry too, about how I acted yesterday." The hyperclass trainer looked at her in absolute shock. Did you just call me by my actual name?" he said, completely ignoring her apology. "Don't get too used to it, ketchup," she replied harshly, causing Ash to let out a small laugh as well. Chloe picked up Evie in her arms and then stood up. "Welp, I think I'm going to check if any stores in Hammerlock are open yet, since I doubt I'll get back to sleep." "Sounds good. See ya later, Chloe," he exclaimed as he said goodbye. Chloe only replied with a wave as she turned around, and then said, "Try not to tire yourself out too much." Yeah, whatever," he replied as he pulled out a Pokeball. "Lucario, come on out." The fighting steel type then appeared from its Pokeball, looking newly refreshed and determined. "Ready for some more training, buddy? Brar." As Chloe was slowly making her way to the center of Hammerlock, she thought back at the words Ash said to her. Maybe he's right, and I am being too stressed out for nothing. Still though, Ash didn't feel like his usual self there. He's always so cheerful and happy all the time, yet from what I saw just a minute ago, he acted pretty serious and wasn't afraid to tell me what he actually thought I was doing wrong, and pretty rudely at that. Chloe shook her head and decided not to think much of it as she entered a small cafe to find something to eat. A few hours had passed and it was now 10:45 a.m. Go had woken up a little while ago and was currently helping Ash continue to train with Lucario, with Pikachu and Grookey watching from the sidelines, when Chloe finally came back to the Pokemon Center. After she went and checked to make sure Go had woken up and saw he was no longer in his room, she figured he'd be at the battlefield with Ash. To no one's surprise, the research partners were both there. Go now helping Ash in throwing the tin cans into the air. This time though, Lucario was in the middle of the field, eyes closed, and Ash and Go were at both sides of him. "Ready, Go?" His research partner nodded. "All right. Now." They both threw multiple cans into the air, and Lucario immediately used Double Team, as half of the clones shot aura spheres at the cans to his right, and the other half at the cans to the left. Lucario only hit a few, but there was clear improvement from earlier this morning. Chloe decided to interrupt the two boys. "Ash. Go." "Oh. Hey Chloe." They responded simultaneously, looking at her, but they both flinched when a couple cans that Lucario had missed hit their head. "I just came back from exploring Hammerlock. I'm assuming you both already ate breakfast, right? Brandon should be here soon." "I have," quickly replied Go. "And since Ash woke up way before me, I guess he has as we." Go was interrupted by the sound of Ash, Lucario and Pikachu's stomachs rumbling. The three looked at each other briefly before suddenly sprinting out of the Pokemon Center to go get breakfast at a cafe. Chloe and Go both sighed. "Guess he was so focused on training that he forgot he hadn't eaten," commented Go. "Yeah, but didn't Pikachu wake up with you? Why hasn't he eaten?" asked his childhood friend. He was going to, but when he saw from the balcony that Ash was already training, he ran straight down to the field and shocked him with a thunderbolt because he didn't wake him up to help him with training Lucario, so I guess the thought of eating breakfast also didn't cross his mind. "Those two, welp, we better get our stuff ready for when Brandon's comes," suggested the researcher. "Right," replied excitedly Chloe. "Pipe a copy," shouted the electric mouse while running, looking behind him. Yeah, I'm hurrying," exclaimed Ash, running just behind his best friend, still with a piece of bread in his mouth. He checked his Rotom phone only to find he only had 2 minutes left before 11 a.m., so he rapidly picked up the pace, since he knew that Brandon took exploring and traveling pretty seriously and didn't feel like getting an earful from him about being late. After a little while, Lucario, who was also running with them, barked at Ash and pointed in front of him, signaling that they were close to Pokemon Center. Once they had finally made it through the doors of the building, Ash, Lucario and Pikachu all stopped to catch their breath as they spotted only Chloe and Go, and the trainer and his Pokémon were now hopeful that Brandon hadn't arrived yet. Did we make it in time?" asked Ash through heavy breaths. 3 minutes late, Ash suddenly said a cold voice. The trio consisting of Ash, Pikachu and Lucario all flinched at the same time, stood up straight and slowly turned to their left, where they saw Brandon leaning on the wall, arms crossed. "Oh, hey Brandon," said Ash, extremely uncomfortably. "You of all people should know to be punctual when it comes to being somewhere at a certain time. Geez, how can two relatively new trainers be better at being on time than the Alolan champion, for crying out loud?" "Wait, wah." Ash suddenly started coughing uncontrollably, catching the attention of the other people at the Pokémon Center. "It's nothing guys he said, waving his arms frantically in front of him. Chloe and Go glanced at each other, wondering if Ash had gone insane. "Oh okay, well, anyways, I packed your stuff, Ash, so we can leave right away without you having to go back to the room," said Go, moving on from Ash's antics. The Pallet Town trainer sighed, returned Lucario to his Pokeball, and finally replied, "Thanks a bunch, Go." "Alright, let's get going then," Brandon said, leaving the Pokémon Center, soon to be followed by Go, Chloe and Ash with Pikachu on his shoulder as always. While the group made their way to the Hammerlock station, Go started conversing with Brandon, asking him things like how was the job of being the king of the Kanto Battle Frontier, or how he caught a Regirock. Ash noticed this and was happy that his research partner and Brandon were getting along quite nicely. Ash smiled at the scene of Go excitedly showing Brandon his Pokédex, stretched out his arms and let out a yawn. "You really shouldn't have woken up early today," started off Chloe. "You will probably be out like a light by the time we make it to the Crown Tundra." "I'll be fine," assured Ash, dismissing the claim from the purple-haired girl. "But yeah, I might sleep on the train so I don't get too tired." "Great, now it's just gonna be me and Evie all alone on the train ride there." "What do you mean? Go and Brandon will be there as well, you know." Chloe sighed. "Judging by the fact Go hasn't even noticed I was here since Brandon arrived at the Pokémon Center, I'll doubt he'll keep me much company." "Can you blame him though? Brandon is a pretty interesting guy, and even a little bit famous at that, so it's only natural he wants to know more about him." Ash smirked and then finished by teasingly saying, "And aren't you used to being alone all the time anyways?" Chloe blushed slightly and exclaimed angrily, "Hey, I'm not alone all the time. I have friends at school, you know." "You do realize you're saying that as you're talking to a person you almost never talk directly to because you are alone right now?" Chloe was about to retort but found she didn't have a reply, so after a while, she held her head. "Geez, I never knew you were so mean, Ash," she said, noting again how out of character Ash was acting with her. "I'm only mean to you because you're easy to frustrate, and I find that really funny," he said with a huge grin on his face. "Why you?" As the pair continued to bicker in a friendly manner, Go and Brandon looked at the scene occurring behind them. "Chloe's sort of right, you know. I don't know about you, since you've probably known him longer than I have, but I've rarely seen Ash purposefully try to provoke someone before," Go whispered to Brandon. I have seen him try to get on someone's nerve a few times in the past, but I will admit that it definitely is a rare occurrence, and from what I have seen since yesterday, it seems like Ash acts this way occasionally when he is with her," he replied, thinking. "I don't know if that's a good or bad thing," admitted Go, slightly worried about his out-of-character behavior. About 10 more minutes went by and the group had successfully made it to the Hammerlock station. When they got to the counter, Ash, Go and Chloe turned in the tickets they bought yesterday that were still valid because of the whole Team Rocket incident, whilst Brandon bought a new one. Once they got to the station that had the destination of the Crown Tundra, Ash noticed how big the trains were and commented, "Whoa, I never knew the trains would be this huge. Since it will take us quite a while to get to the Crown Tundra, the trains on their way there are always quite a bit larger than ones that travel shorter distances," explained Brandon, as Ash simply looked in awe. The Pallet Town trainer only got more excited when Go told him that they had their own mini cabins separate from everyone else, something that was actually written on their tickets, but of course, Ash hadn't realized, something that the rest of the group were not surprised to hear in the slightest. 5 minutes later, the train they were supposed to take started boarding passengers. The group of 4 were the first people to board the train, and after being greeted happily by the staff, Ash ran straight to their cabin. When the trainer opened the door, he looked excitedly at the space they had all to themselves. Now it wasn't anything too extravagant. A little bit of furniture consisting of a decently sized table, 2 long couches either side of it, a sofa in the corner next to a huge window, and finally a wardrobe to keep their stuff, but it was definitely nice that they had it all to themselves. "Wow, this is awesome," he exclaimed. "Ash, you really gotta learn to calm down sometimes," Go said, coming into the room as well. "But you're right, this room is pretty cool." "Alright, this trip is going to be awesome, Crown Tundra, here we come." Go, Chloe and Brandon, who had just come into the room, all simply watched on, holding their heads at Ash's usual self. "MMM, the journey starts today," Chloe hummed quietly as she looked out of the window of the train, hand on her cheek in a bored fashion. She turned her attention to the only 2 Pokemon currently, Pikachu and Eevee, in the room and saw that they were still running around, having fun, without a single care in the world. She took a glimpse at the sofa in the corner of the room and sighed at what she saw. "Guess I was right after all. Hey Pikachu, you mind doing me a favor?" The electric mouse momentarily stopped his game of tag with Eevee and perked up his ears as he looked at Chloe strangely. "Pika?" it said questioningly. Chloe didn't utter another word and simply pointed to Ash, who was currently busy dozing off, laying head first on the small couch. Pikachu grinned as he immediately understood the message the girl was trying to relay, so he charged up a powerful thunderbolt, and after a mighty cry, shot the attack straight at his trainer, who screamed in pain and landed roughly on the floor. Really Pikachu? Twice in one day? What did I do to you this time?" Ash's complaints were drowned out by the noise of Chloe's giggling, the girl trying her best to hold back a laugh at the table, as Pikachu resumed his game with Eevee now that he had done his job. "Ha ha, very funny," mocked the hyperclass trainer as he stood up and took a seat in front of Chloe at the table. "So, what's up?" The purple-haired girl stopped her laughing and simply stared at him, confused. Seeing the girl not following, Ash rephrased his words. "Well, you obviously woke me up for some reason, so what's up?" he repeated. Truth be told, Chloe didn't really know why she decided to wake up Ash. She didn't have a particular reason to do so and kind of just did it without thinking, so she awkwardly tried to give a valid motive to her action. I wanted to get to know you a bit more, since we don't really know each other that much." "Yep, that's why," she answered with an awkward smile. Ash obviously wasn't convinced by her reasoning, but he let it fly for the time being. "Okay, sounds a bit weird coming from you, but yeah sure. What do you want to know?" Anything really, like what you were doing before coming to work for my dad," she said, still fumbling a bit with her words. "Well, to keep it short, I used to travel around the regions and collect gym badges to compete in leagues." Ash slowly started to smile as he reminisced his old memories. "I met a bunch of super nice people and Pokemon from all around the world and went on so many great adventures, it was awesome." "I'm guessing that's how you met people like Brandon." Ash nodded. "Yeah, he's just one of many, but I got to meet a lot of my really close friends because of my travels." "And how about Pokemon? I know you have Dragonite, Lucario, Gengar, Sirfetch'd, Dracovish and obviously Pikachu, but you must have caught a lot of other Pokemon too, right?" Chloe asked, starting to get more comfortable with the conversation. "Yeah, I've caught a fair few other Pokemon, though Go already has a lot more than me." He laughed at that thought and added, "The rest of my Pokemon are at Professor Oak's lab, with the exception of the Pokemon I caught in Alola, who stay there with Professor Kukui. Oh, and I guess there's also a few Pokemon that I caught that are roaming somewhere around the world." "What do you mean?" She pressed on, curious. Ash scratched the back of his head. "Well, for multiple different reasons, I had to release some of them." Chloe was pretty shocked by this, as she hadn't really heard of many trainers releasing their Pokemon, and from the few she had heard, it wasn't for very good or nice reasons, so she pretty aggressively leaned on the table and said, how could you catch a Pokemon but then let them go after all the bonds and memories you make with them just to release them like they meant nothing? Did you think they weren't good enough for you?" Ash defensively put his 2 hands in front of him. Whoa, calm down, Chloe. I promise I had good reasons to leave them behind, some of them even wanted to stay behind." Seeing Chloe not completely convinced, Ash sighed and gave her a concrete example. "The first Pokemon I ever caught, apart from Pikachu of course, was a Caterpie that I had to release soon after it turned into a Butterfree. It was their mating season, and mine fell in love with a pink Butterfree. It took a little extra effort, but after mine saved the pink Butterfree from Team Rocket, they eventually paired up, so I released him so they could be together. Chloe definitely wasn't expecting that as an answer, and a little embarrassed for lashing out irrationally and accusing him without any proof, she looked down and said, "Oh, I guess that is a good reason, sorry." Ash started laughing pretty loudly at Chloe's sudden change of mood, which made the latter pretty irritated. What's so funny? The fact that you can change attitudes so quickly like that, it's actually pretty impressive. The Vermilion City girl didn't take that as a compliment and looked at him in an enthusiastic fashion. "Anyways, enough about me. What about you?" added the hyperclass trainer. "Me? Yeah, you. I told you about myself. Now it's your turn. What were you like before you saw me lying there electrocuted at the front of the lab the first time I showed up? I still haven't forgiven you for that, by the way." Chloe found herself without an answer. She didn't think Ash of all people would ask to know more about her. On top of that, the young trainer didn't even know what to say about herself. She was a student at her local school. And that was about it. She couldn't think of anything else. Well. Suddenly, the duo were interrupted by the door to the room opening pretty aggressively, as Go and Brandon made their appearance. "Chloe, you won't believe what Brandon and I saw on the train." "Oh Ash, you're awake. Finally done dozing off, huh? Ketchum added on the Pyramid King, which made Ash flinch. Sorry," he replied sheepishly. "Where were you two anyways?" Go took a seat next to Chloe, pushing her in the process, and started explaining excitedly what they saw. "We were checking out the places on the train, and we met this trainer with a shiny Noctowl. It was this cool golden color and looked awesome." "Did you really have to shove me out of the way to tell Ash that?" commented the purple-haired girl, though no one paid her any attention. "Whoa, a shiny Noctowl? No way. I caught one too on my journey in Johto." Go and Chloe turned to Ash in shock, which confused the hyperclass trainer. "What?" he asked his friends obliviously, whilst Brandon took a seat next to him. "You own a shiny Pokemon?" first said a surprised Chloe. "Well, yeah, here look." Ash pulled out his Rotom phone and showed the trainers his Pokédex containing all the Pokemon he had caught. Whilst Chloe was more interested in all the different type of Pokemon that his phone showed, becoming pretty impressed with the powerful Pokemon he owned, Go stayed silent for a while until he stood up and screamed. "You had a shiny Pokemon this entire time and you tell me about it now? Well, you never asked." Go simply sighed and facepalmed at his reply. Brandon then took the lead in the conversation. "Anyways, I actually wanted to discuss with you the ruins in the Crown Tundra. What has Professor Cerise told you exactly about said ruins?" The three young trainers looked at each other and Go spoke up. "Well, he basically just told us to investigate mysterious readings coming from one of the temples in the Crown Tundra. That's about it really. Figures, not much is known about these ruins, but I did some research of my own before I came to Galar and I analyzed the readings that were coming from a temple located in the 3-Point Pass, and I noticed that the readings were incredibly similar to multiple readings of wild legendary Regis in the past," explained Brandon. "So you think one of the Regis is located in the temple?" asked Ash. "Not exactly. I'm assuming all of you are familiar with Regirock, Regice and Registeel?" The other three nodded, as Go and Chloe knew about those legendaries from what they were taught in school and Ash had met all of them previously. Those three are supposedly the only creations from Regigigas, but there's an old legend in Galar saying that Regigigas actually created 2 more Regis that have since been forgotten. Other undiscovered Regis? So you think those readings in the Crown Tundra are actually them instead? The Battle Frontier brain confirmed Go's thought with a nod of the head. "Whoa. Alright. Now this adventure is really starting to get exciting," exclaimed Ash, pumping his fist in the air. "It's only a theory though, but since I am quite knowledgeable when it comes to these legendaries in particular, I'm pretty confident they at least have something to do with whatever is in that temple." "Makes sense. You do own a Regirock after all," noted Chloe. "We should arrive at the Crown Tundra station in about an hour, so make sure you're all geared up and ready to go before then. We are going straight to the 3-Point Pass once we arrive," ordered Brandon, to which the three trainers nodded in response. Ash. After the third time calling his name, Chloe had had enough. She sighed, took a huge breath and screamed at the top of her lungs. "For crying out loud, Ketchup, wake up, you stupid Snorlax." Ash immediately jolted off the couch and looked around frantically. "Huh. I wasn't sleeping again. I swear." Go. Chloe and Brandon all looked at the Pallet Town trainer and held their heads in disappointment. "I swear you are the most sorry excuse for a champion ever," muttered Brandon, quietly enough for only himself to hear. How much time do we have before we get to the Crown Tund?" Ash immediately got interrupted by a message coming from the train's speakers. "Attention all passengers, we'll be arriving at the Crown Tundra in approximately 5 minutes. There seems to be a light snowstorm in the area, so it is recommended that all travelers be well prepared to face the cold. Thank you for traveling with us and we hope you enjoy your stay in the Crown Tundra." "Does that answer your question?" asked sarcastically Go. Ash didn't waste a single other moment and frantically took his bag containing his clothes from the small closet and bolted straight out of the room to go to the bathroom to change, with Pikachu following behind him with his signature cap in his mouth. 3 minutes later, Ash came running back into the room slightly out of breath. "SC. Told you I'd be ready." As Pikachu slapped the back of his trainer's head, Chloe took a good look at Ash and blushed slightly. He was wearing the same thick orange jacket and jeans that he bought yesterday at the shops, and once again, she couldn't help but think he looked, well, good. Chloe instinctively shook her head. What was she thinking? This was Ash. The goofball who didn't have a single care in the world, the same one who annoys her so much to the point of actual anger. "Okay Chloe, he's the same stupid old Ketchup, he just changed his clothes, no reason to see him differently now." She tried to convince herself. It was so strange. He was in fact exactly the same, but seeing him without his hat on and wearing different clothing, somehow made him seem like a different person, and Chloe had no idea why. She ignored the thought for now and focused on the mission ahead. Go meanwhile was pretty confused at the sight of Ash and Pikachu, and asked a question that Chloe was also curious about. "Hey Ash, why is Pikachu wearing your hat? Feels kinda weird seeing you without it." Ash turned towards him and shrugged. "No particular reason, makes for a bit of a change I guess, and Pikachu actually quite likes to wear my hats surprisingly." "Pie Pikachu," the little Pokemon said as he gave Go a thumbs up with a grin, then returned to slapping its trainer with his tiny paws again. "Okay, enough about Ash, let's get a move on, I can see the Crown Tundra station close." Brandon interrupted as he pointed towards a small train station that was visible by the window of the cabin. "Right," exclaimed the 3 young trainers. It didn't take very long until the quartet arrived at the station, and after saying their thanks to the staff, they got off the train. Brandon told the group to wait for them at the exit whilst he went and bought a map to help them navigate their way through the tundra to the 3-point pass. As Ash, Go and Chloe exited the building, the trio immediately felt a cold breeze pass by them, and they shivered because of it. "Yikes, even with everything we're wearing, it's still really freezing cold outside," she said as she held on tighter to her jacket. It was safe to say she had fairly underestimated the cold, as she was only wearing a thick white sweatshirt under her beige jacket. She did also have a white beanie matching with a white scarf and small gloves, although these accessories did very little to help her keep warm. Go, who was faring only slightly better than Chloe in terms of staying warm, added, "Yeah, I think we should have probably bought some more layers of clothing. How are you faring, Ash?" After he didn't get an answer, the researcher turned around and noticed that his companion was now gone. "Huh, where did Ash go?" "Oh, you're really gonna get it now, Pikachu. Pikachu." Chloe and Go looked to their left where they found none other than the Pallet Town trainer himself alongside his best friend throwing snowballs at each other. Whilst Ash was hiding behind a small tree for cover, making little snow projectiles in the process, Pikachu was using Iron Tail to try and fire as many snowballs as he could at his trainer. The two of them had huge grins on their faces and seemed to be thoroughly enjoying themselves. Go smiled at the scene and then quickly went and joined the two in their mini snowball fight. Chloe watched on as her childhood friend launched a ball of snow straight at Pikachu, knocking him to the ground, and causing Ash to burst out laughing. This ended up backfiring for the experienced trainer though, as Go and Pikachu then decided to team up against the Pallet Town native. Ash, noticing this, unclipped one of the Pokeballs on his belt and said, "Lucario. I choose you." "Brar!" exclaimed the steel fighting type, although he seemed confused to see Ash hiding behind a tree. "Lucario, help me out here." The aura Pokemon still seemed rather lost, but when he got hit with a snowball coming from Go, he understood what was needed from him. The Pokemon grinned and immediately started helping Ash fire back at both Pikachu and Go. This surprised Chloe, as Lucario didn't necessarily seem like the type to enjoy a simple snowball fight, but nevertheless, the aura Pokemon seemed to enjoy it just as much as the others. After a little while, Eevee, who was beside her trainer, realized how much fun the boys were having and joined in as well, partnering with Pikachu and Go. "Wait, Eevee, hold up a second," she said, although it did little to stop her partner Pokemon. She sighed and then went on her Rotom phone, looking up a guide to the Crown Tundra, as she wasn't necessarily interested in having a childish snowball fight. That being said, only a few seconds after she had pulled out her device, she got hit with a snowball of her own. Hey, who threw that? It didn't take very long before she found the culprit, as Ash once again bursted out in laughter. "Come on, Chloe. Don't just stand there. Me and Lucario are outnumbered over here," he shouted. Once Chloe looked at Ash smiling directly at her, they stared at each other idly for a while and the purple-haired girl felt face get hotter, so she quickly looked away embarrassed. "I'm not gonna waste my time playing in the snow like I'm a little kid. We got research to do." Ash rolled his eyes and went back to helping Lucario fight back against Pikachu, Go and Eevee. Whilst she did agree with what she just said, Chloe deep down found it hard to turn down Ash's request with how he was staring at her. There was something about the way he looked at her that made her feel strange. "What's wrong with me? It's literally just stupid ketchup," she thought to herself. Whilst the girl was busy lost in her thoughts, she failed to notice the group of 5 temporarily stopped their snowball fight. Ash told the group to keep quiet and, with a few hand gestures, indicated his plan to the others. They all started forming the biggest balls of snow they could, and after Ash gave a 3, 2, 1 with his fingers, they immediately started assaulting Chloe with their mini projectiles, making the girl faceplant on the ground. Ash, Go and their Pokemon fell to the ground laughing, struggling to breathe. Chloe was originally furious at this, but when she saw the group vulnerable, she quickly made 5 balls of snow herself, and in a surprising display of aim, hit all 5 of them in a row. Ash, Go and the Pokemon simply stood there, stunned. "Now that's how you throw a snowball," she said grinning. The following moments consisted of a free for all of everyone throwing any piece of snow they could at their companions. Go and Pikachu devised a strategy to take out Ash with the help of a few wild Amoras, who seemed to want to join in as well. The Pallet Town trainer was busy firing everything he could at Chloe and Eevee, whilst Lucario skillfully tried to dodge the incoming projectiles simply using his aura, which was actually working pretty well, until he got overconfident and got assaulted by the opposing pair. After a little while, Brandon finally exited the station, map in hand, only to find the rest of his group and some of their Pokemon having a snowball fight. Now normally, the Battle Frontier leader would have frowned upon his group fooling around, but the sight of the 3 teenagers and even some wild Pokemon having a blast together, reminded him of his childhood, when he used to love to simply play in the snow with his Pokemon, and didn't have to worry about running a complex battle facility. He smiled, reminiscing of old times, and took out a Pokeball, which revealed a Ninjask, and then caught the group's attention. "Hey!" he shouted firmly, which made the group stop suddenly and look at him, slightly worried with his tone. Thankfully for them, he smiled even more at their reaction and exclaimed, "First one to hit my Ninjask gets 10 Pokédollars." Safe to say the group was surprised at Brandon's words, as they were expecting to get scolded, although they didn't complain about the challenge he gave them. The part bug-type Pokemon buzzed excitedly and used Double Team, creating multiple copies of itself. The snow war continued as everyone now focused their attention on trying to hit the real Ninjask frantically buzzing around everywhere. Some other trainers that were on the train with them noticed the fiasco, and decided to join in as well. As the friendly chaos ensued, Chloe took the time to look around and appreciate her surroundings. She smiled as she saw both humans and Pokemon happily running around, frantically throwing snowballs everywhere. Chloe spotted to her right Go alongside the trainer with the shiny Noctowl, and another girl with a Swablu. Pikachu rode on Noctowl's back and Grookey on the girl's Swablu, throwing the balls of snow from above at the multiple Ninjasks. She looked around a bit more and spotted Ash having his own mini-fight with some wild Snowms. He soon got overpowered though, and then the multiple snow types jumped on him excitedly, which made the trainer almost cry of laughter. He then caught Chloe's stare at him, which confused him originally, but he then simply gave a toothy grin and held up a peace sign with his fingers. This made the Vermilion City laugh as well as she felt her heart beat faster. It truly surprised her just how easily he managed to bring joy to anyone near him. After all, he was the first one to go play in the snow, and after only a few minutes, they were now surrounded by dozens of trainers and Pokémon, all following the childish behavior of a single boy. It was as if he was radiating a colorful aura that no one could resist, including herself. She laughed even more at the thought and continued the battle to be the first one to hit Brandon's Ninjask. After approximately 5 minutes or so, a man no older than 30 years old finally hit the real Ninjask, causing the Pokémon to fall to the ground dramatically. Brandon laughed at his Pokémon's dramatic reaction and gave the man 10 Pokédollars as promised, and then everyone said their goodbyes to each other as the multiple trainers and wild Pokémon went their separate ways. Chloe then rejoined Brandon, Ash and Go, the latter who had caught one of the Amoras he was playing with. "Guess our little snowball fight got a little out of hand," Ash said sheepishly to the group, with Pikachu now hiding in his jacket. "You sure can be childish at times, Ketchum, but there's no denying that it's contagious," exclaimed a laughing Brandon, earning a scratch of the head from said trainer. "Well, we should probably get a move on, we got a long walk ahead of us to reach the 3-point pass." Ash, Go and Chloe nodded in confirmation at the Pyramid King's words. Go recalled Grookey to spare him of the cold and Ash was about to do the same with Lucario, until he realized that his Pokémon was little further ahead of the group, eyes closed, and was radiating an absurd amount of aura. Lucario? You alright?" The Pokémon in question didn't respond as it stayed completely still. The quartet observed the aura Pokémon standing there idly, seemingly sensing something peculiar nearby. A couple moments later, the part steel type turned to its right and all of a sudden his eyes shot open and he dashed towards an unknown location. "Hey, Lucario!" Ash screamed as he quickly ran in pursuit of his Pokémon. "Let's follow them," Go said now in a serious tone, as Chloe and Brandon followed Ash. They kept running for a while, as Ash chased desperately after his own Pokémon, and Go, Chloe and Brandon chased after the trainer. After weaving through some tall trees and local Pokémon, Lucario eventually came to a stop near a cliff, and seemingly looked at something in the distance, although nothing could be clearly seen. "Lucario," said a panting Ash as he finally caught up to his Pokémon, who simply pointed in front of him. "What is it? Do you sense something nearby?" Ash, however, didn't need to ask any more questions, as he soon saw what Lucario was sensing, and he and Pikachu stood still, mouth agape. "Ash!" screamed Go approaching him. He started getting nervous when he saw Ash alongside Lucario, staring at something he couldn't recognize floating menacingly above them. What on earth is that?" he said as Chloe and Brandon caught up to him and also observed curiously the figure. "Is that an Articuno?" After Ash's words, the figure finally revealed itself fully as it flew at high speed above them, causing Chloe, Go and Brandon to back up near Ash and Lucario. They finally got a good look at the creature, which did in fact look a lot like Articuno, but slightly different. It had a different color scheme than a regular Articuno, as it was purple and black instead, and had some sort of dark mask covering its sky blue eyes. "No. That's a Galarian Articuno," explained a surprised Brandon. The three young trainers looked at Brandon as if he was crazy, but before they even got the chance to express their own surprise, the Galarian Articuno made a powerful cry and launched an icy wind towards the group, forcing them to jump out of the way. "Well, whatever it is, it doesn't seem to come in peace. Cinderace, let's go." "Regirock, I need your assistance. Pikachu, Lucario, get ready." Chloe saw Ash, Go and Brandon call out their strong Pokémon and felt a little out of place, as she only had her Eevee to battle a powerful legendary Pokémon, but nevertheless she ordered, "Eevee, you're up too." "Eevee," said confidently the small Pokémon. Articuno seemed to be judging them simply by looking at them, holding its wings in a fashion that made it seem like the Pokémon saw itself superior to others. The legendary Pokémon decided to test their abilities and launched a Psycho Cut at every Pokémon. Cinderace, Lucario and Pikachu matched it head-on with Pyro Ball, Aura Sphere and Thunderbolt respectively, whilst Brandon opted to stand his ground with Iron Defense, and Chloe ordered Eevee to simply dodge the attack, which the Pokémon did with difficulty. "Lucario, get in close with a Force Palm. Pikachu, do the same with Iron Tail." Cinderace, Blaze Kick. Stone Edge Regirock. After the three trainers had ordered their moves, their Pokémon immediately took action. Lucario charged up some aura in its palm and Pikachu prepared an iron tail as they ran towards the Psychic, Flying and Cinderace did the same, leaving flame sparks as it ran faster preparing the Blaze Kick, whilst Regirock took some time to fire off a Stone Edge. The Galarian Legendary didn't seem fazed at all by the incoming attacks and skillfully dealt with all of them. Dodging Lucario's Force Palm, deflecting Pikachu's Iron Tail with its wings, stopping Cinderace right in its tracks with another Psycho Cut and finally halting Regirock's Stone Edge with a Shadow Ball. After the attacks, it looked pitifully at Chloe and her Eevee, who still wasn't backing down, and decided to show them they were way out of their league. Articuno let out an ear-destroying cry, disrupting the other Pokémon, and launched a hurricane at the pair. This made them both struggle to stay on their feet as they tried to withstand the attack, but eventually Eevee was blown away. "Oh no, Eevee!" exclaimed Chloe as she caught her Pokémon in the air. Unfortunately for her though, she had backed up too close to the cliff because of the hurricane, and lost her footing, causing her and her Pokémon to fall off the edge. "Chloe!" shouted Go and Brandon desperately at the sight. Ash didn't even take the time to think and immediately dove straight after her. He then frantically pulled out a Pokeball from his belt. "Dragonite, I choose you." As the dragon Pokémon appeared, Ash had planned to have his flying type catch Chloe and Eevee, but since he threw his Pokeball a bit late, he didn't know if Dragonite would be fast enough to catch up to them before they hit the ground, since he didn't actually the length of the fall, so he decided to improvise and grabbed onto one of Dragonite's feet with one arm, and grabbed Chloe's arm with the other. Dragonite immediately felt the weight of both trainers pull on his leg and struggled to stay afloat. Ash with all of his might desperately tried to hold on to both his Pokémon and his companion, who was also holding Eevee with her own arm. The Pallet Town trainer needed to come up with a plan, and fast. "Come on Ash. Think. Think," he thought to himself as he slowly started to lose his grip on Chloe. He still couldn't tell how long the fall was to the ground because of a thick mist obscuring his vision, and he didn't want to test his luck by just letting go and hoping the ground wasn't too far away. He couldn't rely on Brandon and Go as he knew from the cries of Pokémon that could be heard that the Articuno wasn't giving them any breathing room to help them out. Ash was running out of options as it was getting harder to hold on to Dragonite as well and he couldn't call out another Pokémon with his hands full. Thankfully, an idea finally hit him, although it was almost just as risky for him as just letting go of Dragonite and praying the fall wasn't too long, but since he knew it could at least save Chloe and Eevee for sure, he went for it. "Dragonite, no matter what happens, just follow my commands, got it?" he ordered firmly, to which his Pokémon not so convincingly nodded, as Chloe was afraid to see what Ash would do. "All right, Dragonite, hurricane as strong as you can." "Wait, what?" "Eevee." His Pokémon loyally ignored Chloe and Eevee's screams of terror and acted on his trainer's command and started a powerful hurricane, making it even harder for Ash to hold on to both Dragonite's leg and Chloe's arm. "All right Chloe, why you're gonna have to just trust me on this one, Dragonite, focus on Chloe all right," Ash said, very clearly struggling to hold on. He then used all the force he had left to swing on Dragonite's leg, and when he thought the moment was right, he let go of both Dragonite and Chloe, causing latter to screech, but with the help of Dragonite's hurricane, the purple-haired girl was launched more upwards than downwards, which gave Dragonite just enough time to catch her and Eevee on its back, as it terrifyingly watched its trainer fall even further down the cliff. "Ash! No!" screamed out Chloe from Dragonite's back. "Chloe!" shouted Go and Brandon desperately at the sight of their companion falling down the cliff. "Pikachu!" After Pikachu's cry, Brandon knew what was going to happen next so he tried to stop Ash before he did something reckless again, but unfortunately, he was too late, as the Pallet Town trainer had already dived after the girl. "Brandon! We got to hell!" Go got cut off by another cry from the regional Articuno as it fired off another Psycho Cut, forcing Go and Brandon to dodge the attack. "We can't. That Articuno will just attack us if it sees us ignoring it. We have our own fight to deal with," Brandon shouted aggressively. Go obviously didn't like the idea of leaving Ash and Chloe to fend for themselves, but Brandon's was right. The cruel Pokémon wanted them to focus their attention on it, and only it. "Arg? Fine. Let's finish this quickly then, Scizor. Let's go." "Regice. I need assistance," as the two Pokémon appeared. Go didn't even have time to acknowledge the fact Brandon actually owned another Regi, because as soon as the Articuno saw Go and Brandon call out other Pokemon, it hurled a powerful hurricane at the group. Go. You have more agile Pokemon, distract the thing and buy my Regis some time. Got it. Cinderace, get in there with double kick. Scizor, fight the hurricane with air slash. Lock on. Cinderace took off running with a grin, whilst Scizor tried to slow down the hurricane with air slash, which didn't completely block it considering it was a weaker move, but it definitely slowed it down, and with the striker Pokemon's exceptional speed, it reached the legendary Pokemon in no time. The Galarian Articuno once again dodged the attack with ease and was preparing to fire off a shadow ball at its attacker, but Pikachu and Lucario suddenly came out of nowhere and jumped in front of Cinderace, slicing the shadow ball in half with an iron tail and launching a aura sphere respectively, both earning a silent thanks from the fire type. Meanwhile, Regirock managed to land its lock-on, making the Articuno fly high above them and retaliate with an icy wind. Regice, corner its movements with Ice Beam, Stone Edge Regirock. Pyro Ball and Air Slash. With the Ice Beam from Regice limiting Articuno's movement, it made it easier for Cinderace, Scizor and Regirock to hit their moves, as Pikachu and Lucario also contributed with a Thunderbolt and Aura Sphere. Articuno wasn't done just yet though, as it quickly recomposed itself and its eyes suddenly glowed a shiny purple. What's that move? That's Freezing Glare, don't let it hit you, Brandon shouted in panic, unfortunately a bit too late, as Scizor got hit by a purple beam and immediately froze in cold ice. Frustrated, Go returned and thanked his Pokemon. We don't have the time for this. Let's just attack it, it will eventually go down, Go exclaimed, in a hurry to get this over with. No. You can't just relentlessly attack a legendary Pokemon and pray it falls, we have numbers so let's play this smart, argued Brandon. Pikachu, Lucario, don't rush in just yet, keep it occupied with your attacks. Go, calm down and make Cinderace run. The Vermilion City researcher knew better than to argue with the Battle Frontier King himself, so he followed his orders. You heard him, Cinderace, quick attack. As Cinderace took off once more in the direction of Articuno, Pikachu and Lucario kept up a constant barrage of Thunderbolts and Aura Spheres. Brandon followed up by ordering Regirock to use Stone Edge and Regice to use Zap Cannon. Articuno was quickly overwhelmed by a mixture of trying to dodge Pikachu and Lucario's attacks and struggling to keep Cinderace away from him, so it didn't have the time to react to the Regis attacks, and got hit with both of them, Zap Cannon having the added effect of paralyzing the Psychic, Flying type, which is exactly what the Pyramid King wanted. Alright, it's paralyzed. Time to strike back with everything we have. Hyper Beam. Pyro Ball Cinderace. Pikachu. Brawr. The 5 Pokemon put everything they had into one final attack, launching 2 Hyper Beams, a Pyro Ball, a Thunderbolt and finally an Aura Sphere at Articuno, who with its paralyzed state, couldn't dodge the attacks, and a huge explosion occurred, sending a huge wave of snow their way. Once the group regained their visibility, they saw Articuno still standing there but was clearly injured, so it let out one last cry, fired off an icy wind and used it as a distraction to flee. Go and Brandon breathed a sigh of relief, glad to see the Pokemon had finally given up, but just when they thought their problems were resolved, they were reminded by a scream that there was something worse they were forgetting. Ash. No. They heard Chloe scream from Dragonite's back, with no sight of the trainer in question. Everyone immediately ran towards the edge of the cliff, thinking the worst. As Ash fell further and further down the seemingly endless ravine, he almost felt as if time slowed down for him, letting him embrace his final moments of desperation. The trainer considered accepting his fate, but he had one last trick up his sleeve. He quickly unclipped 2 more Pokeballs and, not knowing how much time he had, immediately gave his orders. Gengar, Psychic, Sirfetch'd, throw me your leak. As the 2 Pokemon appeared, they immediately went wide-eyed at the sight of their trainer falling down a cliff, so they quickly did what Ash told them to do. Gengar, knowing he couldn't catch up to its trainer by simply floating to him, as he was already falling at a high speed and was already quite far away from him, desperately used Psychic to try and diminish the velocity at which Ash was falling, which didn't do much but slowed him down a little. Meanwhile, Sirfetch'd, after getting over the realization that he too was falling into the abyss, trusted his trainer's words and threw his leak towards him, which thanks to Gengar's help, reached the trainer in no time. Ash almost missed the leak, but thankfully, he managed to catch it at the very tip, and then he immediately stuck it to the wall. The trainer knew what was up next, so he extended his arm, and as Surfect was falling, caught him by the leg. Ash let out a screech of pain, as he was already exhausted from holding on to Dragonite and Chloe earlier, and once again using all his force to hold onto both his fighting type and his leak stuck in the wall was really taking a toll on him. Nevertheless, the trainer pushed through the pain he felt in his arms and kept the leak firmly stuck to the wall, which after a while, finally made him and Surfetched come to a complete stop, hanging off the edge of the wall of the cliff with the fighting type's leak. Gengar saw this and immediately stopped using Psychic and went to its trainer aid. Meanwhile, at the top of the cliff, Dragonite dropped Chloe and Eevee off next to Go, Brandon and the rest of the Pokémon, and it went after its trainer. The group simply stared at the abyss in silence, praying that Ash would come back up with Dragonite. After what felt like an eternity for them, Dragonite finally came back up, but with Ash nowhere to be seen. "Is Ash?" Go asked, terrified. Thankfully for him and the rest of the group, they soon saw Gengar fly back up the cliff with Ash and Surfetched and drop them off safely. The group were originally relieved to see Ash safe and sound, but when they saw him immediately collapse to the ground upon landing, the weariness came back. Chloe instantly went and checked on the trainer. Ash. Ash opened his eyes for just a second and, when he saw his companion, he said weakly, "Chloe," as he finally lost consciousness. "Hey, kid." Chloe turned around slowly at the sound of Brandon addressing her and saw him preparing to exit the room. "I'll go check on what your friend Go is doing. Will you be alright on your own for a bit?" "Yeah, I'll be fine," she said in an indifferent tone. Brandon put on his jacket and as he was leaving, he hesitated for a bit, but eventually, closed the door behind him, leaving the young girl all alone in the room. It had been approximately 2 hours since the group's encounter with Articuno, and after realizing that Ash had fallen unconscious, they quickly took him to the nearest location for him to get treated. They eventually ended up in a newly constructed Pokémon Center, that also doubled as a motel, in a small village that they later found out was named Freezington. The center was the first and only one located in the entirety of the Crown Tundra, with the purpose of being a temporary rest stop for traveling trainers who wanted to explore the snowy region. Once they had arrived and explained their unfortunate encounter, a Nurse Joy with an Indeedee quickly tended to the unconscious boy, and Brandon had purchased a room for 4 to stay one night, seeing as the group weren't likely to get on the road anytime soon. Since then, everyone had slowly distanced themselves from each other. Go, after silently putting his stuff in the rented room, said he wanted to go out for some fresh air for a little bit, and the others hadn't seen him since. Ash, who had woken up fairly quickly after arriving at the center, was forced to stay in the room he was being treated in, as Nurse Joy wanted the young trainer to stay put while he recovered, to which he reluctantly agreed, and Pikachu stayed by his side. Brandon stayed with Ash for a while as well, since he wanted to make sure the boy was okay, but after some insistence from the Pallet Town trainer, he left him with Pikachu and made sure his other Pokémon were fully healed. That then only leaves Chloe, who after Go left, stayed in the room they had rented and hadn't moved since, not uttering a single word as she watched the snow particles lightly trickle down from the sky through the window of the room. Chloe had returned Eevee to her Pokeball upon entering the Pokémon Center, and she considered multiple times since then to let her out to keep her some company, but decided against it, as she wasn't really in the mood for her Pokémon's cheerfulness, and was actually glad that Brandon decided to leave her alone. As she fiddled gently with her hair, Chloe thought back once again to the events that had occurred a few hours ago. She thankfully didn't remember too much in details, but what she did remember really took a toll on her. The only thing she vividly remembered was the sight of the boy that saved her, injured, and barely conscious on the ground, all because of her. Chloe, the only word Ash whispered before passing out echoed in her mind. She shook her head violently and looked at the ground, defeated. "I guess my dream was right. I am just a hindrance after all," she told herself quietly, referencing the dream she had the previous night, as a little teardrop trickled down her face slowly and stained the carpet on the floor. "Nurse Joy, I'm telling you, I'm fine. It's just a little scratch, really, so could you please just let me leave? I've been here for almost 2 hours now." Ash begged desperately, currently sitting on the bed of the healing room. Nurse Joy looked at him, unamused. "If it was just a scratch, then why can't you raise your right arm?" "It totally can now," he persisted. "Pikachu," sighed disapprovingly Pikachu next to his trainer. knowing full well he was lying. Nurse Joy was also not at all convinced by his words. "You know what? Prove it then. If you can do it successfully, I'll let you leave," the woman challenged the young trainer. Ash obviously wasn't expecting that as an answer and hesitated as he pulled up his sleeve, revealing a huge bruise on his arm. He slowly started to lift his right arm into the air and he was fine, until he reached the height of his upper body when he suddenly flinched and grunted in pain. Nurse Joy chuckled lightly at the boy trying to put on a brave face and grabbed a roll of bandage tape. "I think we both know you're not fine," she said, causing Ash to lower his head as she started to bandage his arm. "But I think with this, you should be good to go for now." Ash's face suddenly lit up in excitement. "Really, awesome, thanks Nurse Joy." The pink-haired nurse giggled at his sudden switch in mood, before saying, "Just doing my job. Don't force it too much and you should be completely healed by tomorrow." Ash gave her a smile and a thumbs up and grabbed his bag to exit the room with Pikachu in tow, but just before he left, Nurse Joy stopped him one last time. "Wait, one last thing." Ash and Pikachu, already halfway out of the room, peeked their heads through the door. "Your friend Brandon booked a room for the night, number 201 on the second floor, and you're forgetting your Pokemon on that tray over there." She pointed at a table right next to the trainer. Ash went wide-eyed as he had completely forgotten about his other Pokemon, but Nurse Joy assured him they were now fully healed. The Pallet Town let out a sigh of relief and clipped the 5 Pokeballs to his belt and said his goodbye to Nurse Joy as he finally left the room. Whilst making his way towards room 201, Ash thought about what the nurse had told him and found it quite strange that Brandon would book a room for the night. It was only 6 p.m. and he was fully expecting the Pyramid King to want the group to continue their way towards the 3-point pass, and the Pallet Town trainer was certain the location couldn't have been that far away anyways. Yeah, there was the delay of them meeting Articuno and him falling unconscious, but Ash had been through worse and still kept going. Heck, Brandon had probably seen him go through worse, yet this time, he went as far as to delay the adventure one more day, something that Ash wasn't even informed about until Nurse Joy told him about it just a minute ago. Distracted by too many questions in his mind, Ash had unknowingly reached room 201, with the door to the room already slightly opened, but no lights seemed to be on. He told Pikachu on his shoulder to keep quiet and the duo peeked their heads inside. They were both surprised to see Chloe sat on the floor, staring idly through the window. Ash noticed the dim mood and decided against his original plan to scare the girl as payback for the Thunderbolt wake up on the train a couple hours ago, and he simply started walking towards the girl. Pikachu considered following, but decided not to, as he felt his trainer should talk to the girl alone, so he simply waited at the door and watched on. As Ash approached the maroon-haired girl, he didn't utter a word and simply sat down next to her. Chloe obviously noticed this, and turned her head, only to find the trainer smiling softly at her. In that moment, she experienced multiple emotions in a very short span, consisting of relief, surprise and, strangely, nervousness. She looked as if she was about to say something, but stopped herself just before and kept looking at the snow lightly falling outside through the window, and the hyperclass trainer did the same. "The snow here sure is beautiful, isn't it?" finally said Ash, after a little while of silence. "Yeah, it is," Chloe responded quietly. Another moment of quietness occurred, until Chloe noticed the bandage around Ash's right arm, and asked worriedly about it, since she didn't know about the state of his injury. "Your arm, is it okay?" "Nothing I can't handle," he said confidently, not wanting to worry his friend. Unfortunately for him, Chloe narrowed her eyes and proceeded to lift up his sleeve, where she could clearly see the heavy bruise mark through the bandage, and her mood seemed to dampen heavily. "I'm telling you it's fine, really. I'm not stupid ketchup," she said firmly. Ash didn't reply as he didn't particularly know what to say in this situation. Chloe meanwhile quietly said, "It's all my fault. I knew I was just a nuisance." Ash turned to face her once more and immediately started contradicting her words. "Chloe, none of this is your fault." But it just as though. The maroon-haired girl stood up suddenly, raising her voice, and an eerie silence fell upon the two trainers, as the Vermilion City girl started getting irritated. "I'm not buying it, Ash. I know this is my fault. If only I was a competent trainer none of this would have happened. If only I wasn't here, none of this would have happened." Chloe started shaking at her own words, fist balled in a mix of frustration and anger, and Ash just sat there, not knowing how to react. The maroon-haired girl, feeling her anger rise up again, raised her voice once more. Don't you get it? The only reason you almost died today was because you had to save me from falling off a cliff because I couldn't take care of myself. There's no point in acting like I'm not to blame when I clearly am. You're just blatantly lying at this point. Now Ash was starting to get fed up with the maroon-haired girl, as he was tired of the young girl accusing herself for what happened. He stood up and looked her straight in the eyes. Listen, Chloe, I was the one who made the conscious decision to jump after you, so the only person at fault for my injury is me and me only. I'm tired of you thinking you can't do anything right and that you're always a problem when that just isn't true. If it was, we just wouldn't have let you come with us in the first place. Ash's reply frustrated Chloe even more and, to Ash's unpleasant surprise, a few tears started to come out as she started yelling at him even louder. I don't get you, Ash. Why do you always insist it's no one's fault when it clearly is? Can't you just blame someone for once, you selfless idiot? You're literally one of the best 100 trainers in the entire world and yet you still blame yourself for an accident that could have literally killed you because someone like me has absolutely no idea what they are doing when it comes to anything in this stupid world. Heck, why did you even save me in the first place? You should have just let me fall. It's not like I am of any use to anyone anyways. It's not like anyone would have cared. I'm just a stupid girl with an Eevee that can't take even care of herself. A dumb city girl that is too afraid to face the real world herself by finding a dream of her own, so she's stuck tending flowers at school all alone like a moron. Seriously, why do you guys even waste your time with someone like M? Ash, acting impulsively, suddenly wrapped his arms around the maroon-haired girl and pulled her into a hug. The girl was left stunned and started blushing furiously at the sudden embrace. Ash, what are you? Look, Chloe. The girl in question stayed completely immobilized as Ash started talking, still embracing her. I know a lot of what I say sometimes sounds really stupid to you, but, at least just this time, you have to listen and believe me when I say that, you're not useless. You're not a problem, and you're not a nuisance either. I get that you think you're at fault a lot of times or that you think are out of place, and maybe you're right. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten injured if I didn't dive after you, maybe things wouldn't have taken a turn for the worse. But you have to realize there's a reason I jumped after you in the first place, and that's because you are important to us, and I don't ever want you to think otherwise. Chloe couldn't understand what was happening. The mix of Ash's warm embrace, that seemingly radiated security to her, and his reassuring words that comforted her much more than she ever thought they could, made her feel safe. The strange yet tender feeling of the Pallet Town trainer hugging her, along with the frustration she currently had with herself, was simply too much for her. All the different emotions she experienced in the past minutes had finally broken her. Tears started to come out uncontrollably as she returned the embrace, and cried quietly on the trainer's shoulder, who comforted her gently. Countless minutes passed where no one moved, nor uttered a single word, with only the sound of a maroon-haired girl quietly sniffling resonating in the noiseless room from time to time. As much as it may not seem like it, in those multiple minutes, Chloe had never felt so reassured in her entire life. Brandon, slowly but surely walking through the snow, sighed for what felt like the millionth time already. Just how far did that kid go? He said with a frown. It had been about an hour since he had told Chloe he'd go out to find where Go had gone, but he still hadn't found him. He even tried asking the people in Freezington, only to be met with shrugs and negatives as responses. The Pyramid King knew the young researcher couldn't have gone that far, since he knew the Go was smart enough to realize it wasn't the best idea after meeting a wild Galarian Articuno just a few hours prior, but with the countless tall trees and wild Pokémon surrounding the area, it was definitely not an easy search. 5 more minutes passed, and Brandon was almost about to give up and wait for him to return to the Pokémon Center, but he suddenly heard an explosion near the train station they had arrived at earlier. He made his way through the snowy area, using the now frequent sounds of explosions as directions. The Pyramid King eventually arrived at a small clearing, free from any trees or wild Pokémon, and saw Go seriously commanding his Cinderace. Pyro Ball. Cinder, the striker Pokémon juggled 3 rocks as if they were soccer balls and fired them at a stone pillar pretty far away from where they were, all 3 of them making contact. Brandon was impressed by this, as it was clear the Pokémon had battling capabilities. The Frontier Brain noticed this when they were fighting Articuno as well. Cinderace had no problem listening to his trainer commands and executing them, but the problem was that the pair had no strategy at all, which made it easier for Articuno to predict their movements. Brandon had figured out pretty easily that the reason Go seemed distant after the Articuno battle was because he felt like he could have done a lot better, and Brandon was planning to help the young trainer realize what he did wrong in said battle. He approached the trainer slowly and said, "You really aren't being discreet, you know. I could hear the explosions from a mile away." Go turned his head, and when he saw Brandon approaching, he jumped in surprise. Oh, hey Brandon, I know what you were doing here." The man calmly interrupted, which made the researcher flinch slightly, as the frontier brain pulled out a Pokeball. "Come on, let's have a battle." Go was visibly not expecting Brandon to suggest that. "A battle? Why?" "Don't think about why, let's just do it," responded the experienced trainer. Alright I guess." Brandon went to the other side of the clearing and released his Pokemon, revealing a Solrock. Go took a second and quickly scanned it with his Pokédex. Solrock, the meteorite Pokemon. Solrock has the ability to read its opponent's minds. It attacks by rotating quickly, while giving off intense heat, the device said. "Okay well, Cinderace, let's go," he exclaimed, as his ace Pokemon stood in front of him. "Show me what you got then," Brandon shouted from the other side, slightly provokingly. Pyro Ball Cinderace. The bunny didn't need to be told twice as he quickly shot a burning rock towards the opposing Pokemon, who easily evaded it without the need for Brandon to say anything. Arg! Pyro Ball again. Deerace. Once again Brandon didn't utter a single word and Solrock dodged the incoming Pyro Balls with no trouble at all. Your Cinderace has other moves, you know. Trying to defeat a Pokemon like Solrock with just Pyro Balls isn't going to get you anywhere. But it's our best move, tried arguing Go. "You're not thinking straight, Go," started off Brandon. "You've seen Ash battle with Pikachu in official battles, right?" Go nodded slightly and listened on. Ash doesn't just use Thunderbolt to knock out every Pokemon because it's Pikachu's best attack. He uses all 4 of his moves to try and outsmart his opponent. Pikachus in general aren't necessarily very strong, but the way Ash uses Pikachu to its fullest capabilities is the reason they make such a good team. I can clearly see that Cinderace is naturally very strong, but you have to think smart. And if Ash of all people can do that, you can too. Go took time to take in Brandon's word. He was right. He never really thought as to why Pikachu was so good in battles as only a second stage evolution, but what the Pyramid King made a lot of sense. Earlier today, he was too distracted by saving Ash and Chloe when he faced the Galarian Articuno that he wasn't thinking straight, and just tried to win with brute force, and if Brandon wasn't there to take the lead, things could have ended a lot worse. Go lightly slapped his cheeks and refocused. He needed to focus on this battle and this battle only. "Alright, Cinderace, get in close with Blaze Kick." The fire type started running towards the part psychic type, his legs burning up as he ran. The Pokemon was about to make contact with Solrock, but Brandon wasn't just going to sit there and watch. Fly up and use Shadow Ball. The Solrock quickly levitated upwards just before Cinderace hit him, making Go's Pokemon miss, and quickly fired off a Shadow Ball in one quick motion, hitting the bunny's back. Cinderace fell face first on the snow and Go saw Brandon smirk. Don't forget the opposing Pokemon isn't just a punching bag either. The Vermilion City researcher was starting to get ticked off, but this time, he remembered to not let his emotions affect him, and quickly ordered Cinderace's next move. Quick attack, run around it. As the striker Pokemon started running circles around his Solrock, Brandon noted Go was doing the same thing that Ash did with Lucario when they faced his Regirock yesterday. He smiled, happy to know he was at the very least observant, and decided to see what the trainer could come up with. Faster Cinderace. Kick up some snow while you're running. Using the speed from Quick Attack, the starter Pokemon managed to kick up a ton of snow as it sprinted and in turn, blocked Solrock's vision. Brandon was not expecting this and quickly ordered his own Pokemon to stay vigilant, although Go already had the advantage. Now Cinderace. Pyro Ball. Cinderace, with its vision blurred from the snow, Solrock couldn't dodge the assault of Pyro Balls that was coming his way, eventually knocking the rock psychic type to the floor. "Alright. Nice going Cinderace," Go exclaimed happily, earning a thumbs up from his Pokemon. "Getting cocky now, are we?" Brandon said suddenly, earning Go's attention. Solrock levitated up from the ground and the Pyramid King switched to offense. Psywave. Go panicked slightly as he lost focus for a moment, but quickly concentrated back to the battle. Dodge it, Cinderace, slightly off-balanced, managed to dodge the incoming waves of psychic energy, but before he even had time to think, Solrock had already fired off a confusion without Brandon needing to say a word. The striker Pokémon stumbled backwards and little yellow birds appeared above its head, indicating it was confused. "Oh no, Cinderace, snap out of it," Go said worriedly, but to no avail. "Alright, enough playing around, Solar Beam Solrock," Brandon ordered his part rock type. The Pokémon in question immediately got to charging a Solar Beam whilst Cinderace was still confused. To Go's shock, despite the fact it was already sunset, Solrock charged the move very quickly, and Cinderace was struck with the powerful Grass-type attack, sending him crashing into a nearby tree. Go worriedly ran towards his Pokémon as Brandon thanked Solrock for his services and returned him to his Pokéball, already knowing the result of the battle. "Cinderace, you okay?" the young trainer said to his Pokémon, who responded with a weak cry. "I'm not a frontier brain for nothing, you know," Brandon taunted as he approached the pair. "But it seems like you learned something important today, so let's go back to the Pokémon Center, kid." The Pyramid King had already turned around and started walking away when Go stopped him. "Wait a second." Brandon came to a halt but didn't turn back around. "I have other Pokémon too. Could you teach me a little more about battles? If you don't mind, of course." A small smile crept onto the Regi master's face, as he quickly unclipped a Pokeball and threw it into the air. Go was once again left stunned as Brandon revealed a Registeel. "Fair warning though, I'm not gonna go easy on you." Go didn't say anything but a visible grin appeared, as he too unclipped another Pokeball, and prepared himself for a hard fight. An hour had passed since Ash had gotten back to the room and Chloe had now calmed down. The mood had lightened up from before and, after Chloe explained to Ash where their other friends had gone, the pair calmly waited for their return. The Vermilion City girl had finally decided to let Eevee out earlier and the Pokémon immediately started running around carelessly, clearly full of energy from being stuck inside its Pokeball. Pikachu, who had entered the room a while ago, tried to get the normal type to calm down with little success, and quickly resorted to joining Ash in simply watching World Coronation Series battles on the TV. Chloe wasn't particularly doing anything special either, and alternated between going through her Rotom phone and observing the battles with Ash. The girl found it pretty funny how Ash was really getting into the matches, even though he wasn't participating, and used that as her main source of entertainment. As Ash was excitedly commenting on how good a person named Flint was doing to Pikachu, she reflected upon what had happened an hour ago. She felt a lot better, and it was pretty obvious it was thanks to who. His words reassured a great amount, that's for sure, though his actions more or so just left her confused. Chloe still didn't really know why Ash had hugged her so suddenly, but it oddly felt comforting, and made her feel like everything was going to be alright in the end. The Vermilion City girl turned to look at her companion and saw him with a beaming smile on his face, completely concentrated on the battle on the TV, making strange and very expressive gestures towards the screen whenever something mildly interesting happened. Chloe smiled at the sight and a small tinge of pink appeared on her cheeks as she unknowingly started staring at the young trainer completely focused on the match. Pikachu noticed the girl's gaze and let out a confused cry while tilting his head at her. "Pikachu?" Ash, hearing the sound of his partner, turned to look at him, then looked at Chloe, who was staring at him strangely, seemingly in some sort of daze. Chloe," he said a little uncomfortably. Ash's words snapped Chloe out of her absent-minded state, and when she noticed what she was doing, she awkwardly fumbled out a reply. "Huh? Oh, why yeah, Ash. You feeling okay? You were kinda just staring." "Why yeah, I'm fine, I was just lost in thought." Ash was a bit concerned, but he let it slide. If you say so, I guess." An awkward tension filled the room as everyone, even including Eevee who had abruptly stopped running around excitedly, looked at Chloe weirdly, so the maroon-haired girl did what she did earlier today when she woke Ash up on the train to the Crown Tundra and said the first thing that came to her head. So. I wonder if Brandon has found Go yet, he's been gone for quite a while now." "You're right. I hope nothing bad happened, again." Ash chuckled slightly then rested his chin on his palm in a thinking manner. "Now that I think about it, do you know why Go left in the first place? It doesn't seem particularly like him to just get up and leave everybody." Chloe shook her head. "No, I barely even realized Go left, I was kinda distracted with, well you know." Alright, gotcha. Ash, remembering the near breakdown she had earlier, quickly asked her how she felt about it. Are you feeling better about that? Yeah, I feel a lot better now. Chloe then realized she hadn't even thanked him yet, so she nervously did so. Thank you for earlier, by the way. I really appreciate it. Just as long as you remember what I told you, I know you'll be fine, and if you ever need anyone to talk to, I'm right here, he replied with a smile. His surprisingly caring attitude made the Vermilion City girl feel embarrassed, so even though she was really truly grateful for making her feel better, she replied with a little dig at him to lighten up the mood. It still bothers me how you can be both an annoying Pokemon addict that only thinks about battling and a person that can understand actual emotions. And it still bothers me how you just can't seem to be nice to me for more than 2 seconds. Let me say the exact same thing you said to me this morning. I'm only mean to you because you're easy to frustrate, and I find that really funny. The duo suddenly burst out laughing at Chloe's words, and Eevee and Pikachu just looked at them in total confusion, thinking their trainers had gone insane. I guess that works both ways, Ash said while rubbing his nose. It sure does. A couple moments later, the door to the room opened abruptly, and Brandon appeared, this time, alongside Go. Go! Exclaimed Ash and Chloe simultaneously. The young researcher in question immediately went and greeted Ash with a worried look on his face. Ash, are you okay? Brandon told me about your injury on the way here. Yeah, I'm fine, just a bruised shoulder, nothing too major, but what about you? Where were you this whole time? Well, Brandon suddenly put his arm around Go and interrupted. He had some things to take care of, but he's doing just fine, I made sure of it. Ash seemed a little suspicious, but since he trusted both him and Brandon, he didn't worry too much about it. Okay, well, it's good to see you again. As Go and Ash shook hands like always, Brandon went up to Chloe, who was smiling at her two friends reuniting, and said in a low voice, "You seem to be doing better." "Why yeah, Ash helped me calm down," she said shyly. Of course he did. The Pyramid King's response confused the maroon-haired girl, but before she could question what he meant, Brandon coughed loudly to catch the attention of everyone. "Alright, listen up everyone. Nurse Joy said Ash's injury should be healed by tomorrow morning, so let's get some rest today and tomorrow we focus on getting to the 3-point pass. We've already wasted a whole day due to some complications, so we can't afford to waste any more time. We leave at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, so be ready. And please, try not to be late this time, Ash." "I won't," the hyperclass trainer said while laughing sheepishly. Tomorrow, the group of four's quest to discover the mystery behind the strange readings in the temple in the Crown Tundra truly begins. Their adventure still has a lot of unknown obstacles ahead, and their complications have only just begun. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts and reviews in the comment box. Now I will see you in the next video.